We're going to follow up. We're going to get some more information. We'll move in that direction.
Oh, excellent. All right. I'd like to call to order this regular town commission meeting on August 24th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Let's all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Town Clerk, will you please do the roll call?
Mayor Mayfield,
Here.
Vice Mayor Campo, Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompeck.
Here.
All right. Up first, we have proclamations and presentations. And the first proclamation we have is the National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month from New Horizons of the Treasure Coast. We have Phil Gostidier. I don't know if I said that correctly. I apologize.
Not the first one.
Oh, and actually, I actually need to have the town clerk read the proclamation, please. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, which directs the community's attention to this public health epidemic destroying lives, whole families, and sometimes entire communities. Whereas suicide rates on the Treasure Coast and in Okeechobee were increasing in the first half of 2021, according to our medical examiner's office. And whereas there were nearly 2.5 times as many suicides, 47,511 in the United States, as there were homicides, 19,141. And whereas for every completed suicide in 2019, there were 29.5 attempts at suicide. And whereas, as the second leading cause of death for ages 10 through 34, and the fourth leading cause for ages 35 to 54, suicide is a major contributor to premature mortality. And whereas in 2019, the age-adjusted rate per 100,000 population of suicide deaths, all in Martin County, was 16 compared to Florida at 14.5. And whereas suicide is the only type of death that's 100% preventable, and by offering the public education, data, support, and services, we as a community have taken a step towards preventing another suicide by our residents. And whereas we're honored to be part of the healing process, raising awareness for and support of those affected by suicide by offering supporting services, addressing mental health illnesses, and drug and alcohol addiction. Now, therefore, I, Kaya Mayfield, Mayor of the town of Sewell's Point, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
All right, thank you, Town Clerk. And let me come present this.
Is it okay if I remove my mask to speak? Good evening. My name is Phil Grodidier. I'm an attorney at Fox, Muscovsky, and Stewart, and I'm also a board member at New Horizons of the Treasure Coast in Okeechobee. On behalf of the New Horizons staff, the board of directors, and volunteers, I thank you for proclaiming September as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month in Sewell's Point. For 63 years, New Horizons has provided mental health and addiction recovery services to people in need of help. Today, those services include inpatient and outpatient care to over 15,000 children and adults across 4 counties, regardless of their ability to pay. Suicide is 100% preventable. Your proclamation sends a resounding message to the community that mental health matters and help is available. In the first 6 months of 2021, we have learned from our medical examiner's office that there were 67 suicides in the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee region. We know that for every completed suicide, there are about 25 attempts. We have learned the effects of a global pandemic on the collective mental health of a community are not seen until 14 to 18 months post-pandemic, so we are now only beginning to realize the true numbers this global crisis has caused. To add to your understanding of suicide, alcohol and other substances amplify the risk of suicide among fragile populations. About 20 U.S. military veterans die by suicide every day. In about the time it took to receive, read, and address this group, another suicide has taken place in our country. However, there's hope. New Horizons Mobile Response Team operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have mental health professionals available by phone day and night, and we are the only agency in the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee that brings mental health services directly to a person in need of help. No cost, no hassle. Just call 772-468-3909. We also strive to teach the community about QPR, question, persuade, and refer, the CPR of suicide prevention. We need to look up from our screens and look people in the eye when we ask how they are, especially if you know they have recently experienced a loss or some form of trauma. And if they're not doing well, we need to ask them the hard questions. Are they thinking about hurting themselves? And if the answer is yes, we need to persuade them to get help and then stay with them while we call 911 or 211. We appreciate your time today and hope you'll join us at our 11th annual Race for Recovery 5K Run and Walk on September 25th at Indian River State College's Pruitt campus in Port St. Lucie. Please check out the New Horizons website for more information. Thank you for your attention. Raising awareness here today will likely save a life.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's very important work, especially in these times right now that are very difficult for many people. Up next, we have Hunger Action Month from the Treasure Coast Food Bank, and we have Representative Dana Trabulsi with us. Is she here or no?
She's not, but I'm here in her place.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're happy to have you here. And now, Town Clerk, would you please read the proclamation?
A proclamation to hunger issues. And whereas food banks and hunger relief organizations across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, will coordinate numerous events throughout the entire month of September to shed light on this important issue and to encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in the local community. Whereas now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Sewell's Point Town Commission that September 2021 is Hunger Action Month in Sewell's Point, and calls this observance to the attention of our citizens.
Thank you, Town Clerk. And the Treasure Coast Food Bank was kind enough to give us these orange scarves and ties, and we appreciate that. And I will give you your proclamation.
Hard to get through the ballistic flash there. Everybody smile. We all still do it though anyway, don't we?
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Alexandra Lord, and I'm joined by Shirley. On behalf of our President and CEO, Judy Cruz, our dedicated staff, and our Board of Directors, I would like to thank you for proclaiming September as Hunger Action Month. As a member of the Feeding America network of food banks, Treasure Coast Food Bank is leading the fight against hunger in our community. by securing millions of meals and providing them to people facing hunger. Throughout the month of September, Treasure Coast Food Bank will be hosting many events that include our annual Outlaugh Hunger Comedy Show, our first ever Outrun Hunger 5K. And for more information on all of these events and more, please visit our website at stophunger.org/ham. Thank you again for your continued support in the fight against hunger.
Thank you very much. We actually have a comment from a commissioner, Commissioner Fender.
If we wanted to donate, where would we go?
On our website, which is stophunger.org/donate.
Okay, thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tompeck.
Yeah, I was curious if we had any kind of a town collection point for collecting canned goods and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can come up.
On our website, again, stophunger.org, there's a tab that says Give Help, and we have 400 partner agencies throughout Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee County where you can drop off food. We also have a Martin County office called Whole Child Connection, which works with children and families to help provide benefits and food. So you can drop off food there as well. And if you'd like to do a food drive, we will come pick up the food here.
Okay. All right, good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving along to item C, the Traffic Safety Challenge, Florida Department of Transportation. I believe there is an award for Chief Tina from Charles Kane. Is he here?
Good evening. My name is Charlie Kane. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm the District 4 Law Enforcement Liaison. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come here and present an award to the Sewell Point Police Department. The award is for second place in the Florida Law Enforcement Liaison Traffic Safety Challenge. It's also known as the Chief's Challenge throughout the state. We have approximately 239 law enforcement agencies participate in this traffic safety challenge in this past year. Basically, we recognize the best overall traffic safety programs in the state of Florida. Our goal is to reduce traffic crashes, fatal crashes, and serious injury crashes across all traffic safety emphasis areas. Areas of concentration include enforcement of traffic safety law, the creation of awareness within the agency and with the public, training and recognition of agency members, within the emphasis areas, distracted driving, impaired driving, motorcycle safety, occupant protection, child passenger safety, pedestrian and bicycle safety, speed and aggressive driving, and other emphasis areas. This is probably, I think, the 5th or 6th time that we've presented this award to Sewell Point Police Department in the past 14 years that I've been part of the program. I could tell you that working with the police department and Chief Chechnowski, we have a tremendous amount of cooperation and law enforcement support here in the town of Sewell Point. I appreciate everything that they do. So without any further ado, I want to present the award to Officer Garcia, who is our submitting officer for this department. Let me put my mask on.
I can just say just a couple of words.
Yes, please.
We do want to thank Charlie for his support. He visits us on a regular basis and keeps us abreast of all the latest trends and making sure that we keep our focus on all these different areas. And also to congratulate Officer Garcia. Lieutenant Wade couldn't be here this evening. Those two officers are the ones that make sure that the officers are aware of the different emphasis areas we have at different times. They go ahead and promote that amongst the officers. They also make sure that they engage in all these different areas of specialized training throughout the year in relation to traffic safety. And then they handle all of the reporting. And I do think it is a feather in our cap, you know, second in the state's not so bad. I liked it better when we were first, but, you know, we have corrected our mistakes from this year. We genuinely think we got a good shot at first already for next year, so we are working diligently on that, and you know that traffic safety is something that we take very seriously here. And Officer Garcia handling that on behalf of the agency is a huge asset, and we genuinely appreciate everything that he does for that. So thank you, Juan.
Excellent. All right. All right, on to item D. That is the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project. Save Our Indian River Lagoon presentation by the Indian River Lagoon Council. We have Virginia Barker, Director of Brevard County Natural Resources Management Department. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the invitation to present this evening. Just to clarify, I'm representing Brevard County and the program that we have ongoing for the Indian River Lagoon. Next slide, how slides there? Okay, so just for a little street credibility, in 2016, our voters approved a half-cent sales tax to fund implementation of a plan to improve our water quality. And since the first dollars were collected in 2017, we've completed 51 projects. We have 24 that are currently under construction, 58 more in design, hundreds in contracts, and those are the big capital improvement projects. We also have hundreds of individual contracts for folks to upgrade their septic or connect to individual sewer lines that are already in place, or repair leaky lateral. So a lot going on. As a small part of the program, we dedicated 2% of the revenues to measuring the performance of our projects and using that performance data as a feedback loop to annually update and improve our plan. And so that 2% is really important in terms of transparency and accountability. And we're far enough along now that we have enough results to show that these projects are really working. Next slide, please. So our plan is a multi-pronged attack. Inputs to the lagoon, how to remove accumulations of those excess pollutants that are already stored up in the lagoon, restore the living filtration systems that have been overfished and removed over the decades, and then responding to new information and opportunities. Next slide. So in order to do that, it was really important to understand the proportion of the sources for the pollution. And so this graph is the latest, based on a lot of that 2% performance data that we've been collecting. And on the far right end, you see sewage discharges. And this is always surprising to people. This used to be our largest source. And from the 1990s, we disconnected our wastewater treatment plant discharges, and so you see that is currently our smallest source. Even though when those sewage overflows happen, it's the headlines, everybody can point a finger at it, they think that's to blame. It's really a very small fraction of the source. So you can see how that compares to natural lands and to the other sources. We've spent 30 years working on our stormwater. And what became obvious to us 5+ years ago was that we've made a lot of headway, we'll continue to work on our stormwater, but even if we got our stormwater down to crystal clear, pristine water, we still would not have the water quality that we needed because stormwater is just not responsible for a big enough fraction of the pollution source to consider it the silver bullet and stay with our focus on stormwater. We have to look at these other sources. So for tonight, I'm just going to focus on septic because your town manager suggested that was maybe what might be of the most interest to your town. Next slide, please. So just to get everybody on the same page, a septic system, the way it works, there's really only about 10% nitrogen reduction in the septic tank, and then there's another 10 to 30% of nitrogen reduction that happens in the drain field. And then what happens after that really depends on the distance between the bottom of the drain field and the top of the groundwater, how far that travel distance is, because of the microbial processes that happen in that intervening soil, and then how far it is laterally that those nutrients move through the groundwater to the lagoon or the St. Lucie River, whatever your nearest water body is. And so it's, 2 distance calculations, and then the other is the type of soil. So if you have sandy soils, from old dune ridges, that sewage moves very, very quickly, very few microbial processes. Most of the nutrients make it straight to your water body. If you have more organic agricultural soils, then you have less nutrients making that way. So we started out, next slide, using we have 83,000 septic tanks in Brevard County. About 53,000 of those are part of the watershed that drains to the Indian River Lagoon. And so we wanted to understand which of those were most important and could we prioritize them. We actually looked to examples in Martin County and Port St. Lucie, some work that had been done down here about 10 years ago that looked at 10 different factors to estimate the loading from septic tanks. We didn't have the data for all of those 10 factors. We only had about half of that. And based on that, we came up with some initial loading that was on the order of 500,000 pounds of nitrogen a year from our septic. But you can see even from that data that distance is a huge factor. And so while there's 15,000 septic systems that are very close to the water, they're responsible for about 300,000 pounds of that load, whereas 13,000 septic tanks that are 200 meters from the water are responsible for a very small fraction. And so we quickly zoomed in on those properties that are closest to the water. Next slide, please. And then within those systems that are closest to the water, we looked at the soil type and how fast water moves through, how sandy are those soils, what kind of microbial processes are happening there. And so with that, you can see that 8,000 of those septic systems are responsible for nearly half of the load. We improved our modeling over time. We've since run the state's ARC inlet modeling, which I know Martin County has done as well. And so we have our total load is now estimated at around 400,000 instead of 500,000, a 20% refinement. So those 8,000 tanks are responsible for nearly half the load. Next slide. Sorry, click again, thank you. And so then we looked at an even finer scale of distance for those parcels that are close to the water and on sandy soils. And you can see that just 5,500 of our 53,000 tanks are responsible for nearly half of the pollution. And so we are doing a very targeted approach going after those tanks, 10% of our tanks that are responsible for nearly half of the septic load. Next slide, please. And so what are we doing with them? We are converting them to, or connecting them to central sewer where we can, and we are upgrading them to advanced septic where central sewer is not an option. We have, sorry, go back a second. We have installed 45 groundwater wells around the county to measure exactly what is in the groundwater in septic communities, in sewer communities, in natural areas. And so you can see the red bar represents how polluted the groundwater is in our septic communities versus how polluted the groundwater is in our sewer communities. Obviously, that's the big improvement that we're really hoping to make with septic to sewer conversion. But then we also monitored areas that are on central sewer, but are then getting reclaimed water back they're using for irrigation. Next slide. And that's the purple bar. And so what happens at the wastewater treatment plant is it treats for pathogens, it does secondary treatment, but unless you have advanced wastewater treatment going on at your plant. There's still high nutrient loads in that reclaimed water that we're then spraying all over our yards for irrigation and just as polluting. So spending millions of dollars converting from septic to sewer will only help if we also upgrade our wastewater treatment plants so that that reclaimed water is clean when we send it back out for reuse. Next slide. Another thing that we discovered through our monitoring, the science literature on septic was all about nitrogen, nitrogen, nitrogen. In fact, when we started our groundwater collection data, we didn't even monitor for phosphorus. Then we monitored for phosphorus every other month on a handful of sites, and we were seeing very elevated phosphorus levels. And so we started collecting that data for all of our wells, both total phosphorus and the bioavailable form of phosphorus, orthophosphate. And so the red line there is the septic communities, and you can see that is bioavailable phosphorus that is not bound to the soil like everybody thought it would be. It is moving through the groundwater to our water bodies, and it is that phosphorus that kind of tips the scale towards from blooms to harmful algal blooms. So this is a really important piece of information we wouldn't have if we had not started this data collection effort. Next slide. Also, with central sewer, it's very important that we maintain the sewer system and address leaks in the system. So the blue there is to represent during a storm event, the groundwater table rises and the sewer pipes are underwater, and if there are any leaks in those pipes, the hydrostatic pressure, the water in the groundwater gets into those pipes, overwhelms the system, and that leads to sewage overflows, which hits the headlines and everybody is very, very upset about. But most of the year, click please, the groundwater table is lower. And so the question is, if those pipes have leaks in them, is the sewage leaking out? And the utilities folks told us, oh, no, it's not a problem then. It's just about the overflows. But we convinced some homeowners to let us collect groundwater information in their yard, and 7 out of the 8 sites, we found evidence that the sewage is both leaking out as well as the groundwater leaking in. And the sewage leaking out is year-round, whereas the sewage overflows is during a hurricane, which is hopefully not that often. So very important to have those tight systems. So this is my summary slide, just that, there's so many different sources of pollution. There is no one single silver bullet solution. We all have to do our part. We're all in this together. We've done incredibly well having dedicated funding. A lot of these projects take years to get permitted and developed, and so without that dedicated funding, it's hard to plan things on that long time scale, especially these very expensive multi-year septic sewer projects. And it's not just about implementing capital projects to improve the current situation. It's also about regulating, creating additional source controls to stop creating the pollution, and of course the participation of all our citizens in voluntary pollution prevention at their homes and in their daily lives. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you. You had some really good information. It was very edifying. Commissioner Tompeck.
Yeah, it really was good information. I'm curious, you have a lot of details here about septic systems and how they affect it, but in this particular area, what percentage of that is the problem as opposed to the discharges from Lake Okeechobee? Because it's been my understanding that the discharges are significantly higher, and that, don't get me wrong, I still think that a lot of these things need to be done. And matter of fact, in Fort Pierce, we have an extensive program for lining old sewer lines just for the reasons that you talked about here. But I'd like to get an idea of what the percentage is, or what you think the percentage is.
Great. I work for Brevard County, and one thing that we're fortunate about is that the Lake Okeechobee discharges don't get to us.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And so, I I feel for you with that additional, thing that is so far out of your control.
All right, Commissioner Campo?
Thanks for being here. From the programs you've experienced where the conversion takes place in Brevard, what was the cost to each homeowner to convert, or what was the range, and what was maybe the total cost of those hookups?
So what we found is that a lot of the communities that are most important to connect to sewer were not originally constructed on central sewer because of the difficulty and cost in bringing sewer to them. So places that are built on coquina ridges, communities that are, down a long causeway, and you've got to construct and maintain, operate a lot of infrastructure to be able to provide sewer service to them. So the cost of providing that service ranges from, $20,000 to $50,000 per parcel if you broke it out that way. We looked at a number of programs that were ongoing and, how much of that cost should be passed along to the homeowner. Martin County has a fabulous program. Our commissioners decided that we wanted to try to fund 100% of the connection cost, or at least come up with, what's the average cost for a typical home, sort of a $250,000, 2,400 square foot home in our community. The larger homes that are set back further, that have higher costs, they would absorb that delta. But we're providing about $12,000 per home for connection costs, and then the homeowners are providing the rest.
Can we sign up for that?
Thank you, Virginia. That, like I said, that was a great presentation. We're happy you were here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. And again, if you have any public comment on agenda items, just make sure it's turned in before we get to that agenda item. But right now, like I said, it's non-agenda, 3 minutes, and address the commission as a whole, and there's no back and forth. All right. First, Dan Bongino. You want to come up to the lectern, please? Name and address.
Got notes this time. Big mistake last time. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So since last time I was here, I've learned some new information, which candidly aggravates me even more because I'm a taxpayer here. I work hard. I've had some of your lovely residents here. Here's a Beverly Beavis Jones send a beautiful message to me saying, lucky for you and your millions, you're moving soon. Consider Indiantown for lower taxes and services. Get out now. You'd like to keep that, you
Excuse me,
can.
let's try to not name out other residents. You can
No,
just say
let's
a
do that,
resident.
because it was a public forum at Frank's Forum. So let's do that. Thank you very much. I'm a resident here. I can talk. I don't want to be interrupted. I was very nice last time, and you guys did what you wanted anyway. So consider Indiantown,
Madam
which
Mayor.
is really awesome.
Yes, tell me.
Because that's spectacular. What's wrong with Indiantown? Why do we have residents here attacking Indiantown at a public forum? That's kind of odd, right? There's a lot of nice residents of Indiantown. I also found a couple mailers from last time, including one from Frank Fender that says, keeping our tax millage rate
You're
capped
supposed
at
to address the
2.87.
commission as a whole. Excuse me, you're supposed to address the commission as
I
a
am,
whole.
this is for the commission.
You're singling out a commissioner.
No, this is a mailer.
Okay, all right.
It's a mailer.
Okay.
This is in personal, this is a mailer. It says, right here, keeping our tax millage rate capped at 2.87 mils. So is Frank being dishonest? I don't understand. What happened? I also found this letter, this is fascinating, 'cause this is all public record here, that the town is looking for additional revenue sources. This is from the town to apparently a law firm here. But they're looking for MSTUs for more money because you want to bill out other stuff, our police and our other things as well. Hey, guys, listen, I work here, and apparently Mr. Kurzman here ran as a conservative too. Kai, are we not allowed, what's the point here? I get that you're in your little forum, but we're not allowed to talk to people. What's the point?
You're supposed to address the commission as
Okay,
a whole.
well,
and I welcome
he's on the
you to
commission,
say
correct?
Yes, you could say a commissioner.
Okay, well, a commissioner by the name of Kurzman apparently ran as a very conservative guy as well. And apparently a lot of people supported the mayor as well. And then what did you guys do? You come into office and you take everyone's money and you act like it's your own. I'm really sorry, but people are really pissed off. And you all pretending like it's no big deal and that, you know what, it's not our money, so screw it, I find really disingenuous, okay? I mean, there are people who work really hard here, and a bunch of other residents have reached out to me since then and are really aggravated, and a lot of them, you don't know this. Am I addressing the commission now? Is this okay? You don't know this, are coming out to me because they're afraid, because there's cameras and they're afraid they're going to get canceled. That happened when I walked out. And they've been reaching out to me. So you guys may think you have a consensus, but you don't. People here are mad. And I strongly recommend you take your little attack dogs attacking me on Twitter and tell them to back off and stop attacking the residents of Indiantown. Really disingenuous and dishonest. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you. All right, up next, we have Kathy Muscovsky. Non-agenda item, please.
Kathy Muscovsky, 9 Ridgeview South. Commissioners and staff, thank you for the recent Town Times full of ways residents can keep up to date and communicate with you. Sadly, it is also used in a biased way to support raising taxes. Do you know? Having the lowest millage rate in Martin County for 10 years doesn't mean we paid lower taxes than others outside Sewell's Point. Commissioners, like Mr. Campo, have held the current 2.87 millage rate for 6 years. Thank you. He's been the strongest supporter of fiscal responsibility. Other commissioners campaigned to keep the mill rate, but haven't kept their word. A look at the property appraiser's website does not show you pay less tax living in Sewell's. As a matter of fact, a Sewell's Point property value on a third of an acre non-waterfront is $265,000 versus a similar sized parcel in Stewart at $135,000 or in Jensen Beach parcel at $95,000. The property value of a Sewell's Point half-acre non-waterfront is $350,000 versus $130,000 for a full acre in unincorporated Martin County. Improvement value on a Sewell's Point frame home is $235,000 compared to $130,000 to $150,000 for a similar size wood frame home outside of Sewell's Point. The 2019 census shows Sewell's Point median home value was $833,000 compared to Stewart's $209,000 or unincorporated Martin County's $274,000. That same census shows the median real estate tax paid in 2019 in Sewell's Point was $6,800, while Stewart was $1,500 and unincorporated Martin County was $1,800. Why not say these facts indicate that my property and my home, if it was located elsewhere in the county, I would pay less tax even though that area's millage rate were higher. We could also determine that our properties and homes are assessed higher in value than many other areas in Martin County, and thus we actually pay higher taxes with a lower millage rate. Respectfully, the commission or staff should not use our town newsletter or emails or the dais to spread manipulated, misleading misinformation. Residents need full truth, not bias. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next we have Andrew Michelov. Your name and address. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening. Now that my blood pressure is down a little bit from a few minutes ago, I first wanted to take a moment to introduce myself to Vice Mayor Campo. I don't think we've formally met yet. My name is Andrew Michelov. I live at 9 Mandalay. Just to kind of tell you a little bit more about myself, you usually see me in shorts and sandals, t-shirts, hair pulled back, could be living on the beach. In fact, my position is head of global head of customer success for a new division at Volkswagen. We're building the connected car vehicle of the future. We have about $30+ billion in funding from Volkswagen. So my job is to essentially make sure our customers are successful on our platform, traveling around the world. Now that I've said that, I wanted to read something that I sent to the former owner of my house before I moved to Sewell's Point. As I mentioned last time, I can choose to live pretty much anywhere, but I chose to live in Sewell's Point for a lot of the reasons that others also live here. So the message goes as follows. This was submitted along with my offer to the previous owner. And for privacy reasons, my girlfriend has asked me not to mention her name, so I'm going to do my best. I'm reading off of this to eliminate her name from this as much as possible. So it goes as follows. My girlfriend and I moved from the hustle and bustle of Miami to the Treasure Coast in 2016. Soon after we arrived, my girlfriend accepted a position with the Martin County Parks Department and has enjoyed improving the lives of thousands of Martin County residents and their children. Together, we have grown to love the area and everything it has to offer. Since moving here, we have been renting in Rio, this is as of 2.5 years ago, along the St. Lucie River, and have absolutely enjoyed the beauty that surrounds us. We have been interested in a home purchase for quite some time, but never seemed to find the right house that would seem like a home. We've always loved Sewell's Point, and the minute we pulled up to our house, to your house, because it was the previous owner, beautiful home at 9 Mandalay, we knew it was right for us. Once we entered and saw what a beautiful home you have built, we fell in love. As a person who appreciates attention to detail, I was impressed by the care and love you've given to building and maintaining your home. Katya and I have treated our current rental house like it is our own. We're so excited about the prospect of carrying that tradition to our new home and loving your home as you have all these years. I hope you will consider our strong offer a fair one and make it possible for my girlfriend and I to own our first home together. This is a very special and exciting step in our life journey together. We're excited, look forward to the prospect of many years of happiness at 9 Mandalay. Warmest regards. Point being, we really enjoy our home, but with all the drainage issues we have, we find it really, really challenging to actually fully feel that we can enjoy the home. And it's a constant struggle and a constant stress for us. So thank you for listening. I will reach out to Joe as kind of next steps and get back to the town with my findings. Appreciate the time. Thanks for everything.
Thank you very much. And then we have Jackie Thurlow Lippisch, please. Did you want to wait till the agenda item? I'm just seeing, I was thinking it was on agenda, or do you want to do your comment now? I called you now, so if you'd like to get it done, since that's farther down.
I'm sorry. I put it in for public comment, so this is where I want to speak.
Okay, yep, that's what I'm asking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Mayor and Commissioners. This is Jackie Thurlow Lippisch, resident of Sewell's Point since 10 years old. I'm now 57, and also former mayor and commissioner, as many of you know. I served this town from 2008 to 2016. As I mentioned, I've decided to start coming to your meetings again because this town is so important to me. And this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm going to fulfill that tonight. If you look up behind you, and I'm sure you have many times, or if you've ever looked at the pin that you wear, some of you probably know this and some of you may not. Some of the residents of the town may know this, some of the residents may not. But there's a reason for the laurel, basically, that's around the brown pelican on the town of Sewell's Point seal. And it is the satin leaf. The satin leaf is a very special plant. And it has dark green on the top, and it has almost a gold on the back, which is why when you're looking up there at your seal, you'll see some of it brown and some of it green. And I have to say, in the past, I've heard certain commissioners or people go, you know, what's with that, or why is it like that? It's like that because this is a very special plant. This plant only grows in tropical hammocks, and that is where we live, in a tropical hammock. And another thing that I think is worthy of noting is that God created our plants and animals and waters in a way to take care of themselves. And unfortunately, we have mowed down almost everything. But the great thing is we can put it back up. You can plant native plants to help cleanse the water that has to deal with the nitrogen and phosphorus. I'm on the South Florida Water Management District, some of you may know. some of the public may know. What cleans the water coming out of the EAA, where all the sugarcane and vegetables grow, and also sometimes Lake Okeechobee, are stormwater treatment areas. Those areas are plants, and they're specific plants of native plants that take up the phosphorus and the nitrogen. Our native plants do a better job of taking up the nitrogen and the phosphorus than when we put in Floritan grass or, any number of things. It's hard to have all native plants, but it is possible to have a mixture. So I just wanted to share with the public and you this special hammock plant that really only grows in Sewell's Point and also in Rocky Point. And the next time you think of pulling it out, please think about saving it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That is a unique look. All right. Now we are moving on to additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda. I have a change. I would like to suggest to move the PACE resolution to before the public hearings. There was a request to do that. I think the gentleman who's here for PACE over there needed to go back to Sarasota tonight and a sick child, so I said we could accommodate that. I'd like to put that as item essentially 6.1, so just ahead of the public hearings, and remove it from the resolution, so there's only one resolution, only 9A, no item 9B.
I'll make that motion if it's necessary.
That is necessary, yes. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner, let me finish this.
Yeah,
Let's,
I wanted to remove 12A.
okay,
12.
okay.
A.
12,
Balloting.
oh, the balloting for the septic and sewer?
Yes.
Okay. All right, since that's yours, so, Commissioner Fenn, you want to make the motion to
I
remove
will
both those
now make
things?
the motion with both
Okay.
of those changes if required.
Sounds good. Can I get a second?
Second.
Town clerk?
Vice Mayor Campo?
Don't we have discussion after a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, okay, yes, I wasn't
I was just
thinking.
wondering why Commissioner Kurzman wanted to remove item 12A since it was his.
I just want to get a little more information beforehand.
Okay, hopefully bring it back. All right, seeing no more discussion, call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Campo? Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes. All right, so those were to approve the changes, and now we're going to get an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo?
Aye.
All right, moving on to 6, consent agenda. Looking for Commissioner Campo?
I'd like to remove the financials from the consent agenda and make it after the PACE discussion, just to allow them a chance to go back. Just have a couple of questions.
yes.
Is Cheryl here, or?
She's
Okay.
out sick.
Okay, so I'll have a couple of questions. If you can answer them, great. If not, we'll wait.
Okay, so since she's not here with no one to discuss it, and how come you didn't, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but how come you didn't say it with the additions, deletions, or changes, just because you forgot?
No, removing something from the consent agenda?
Is that not an addition, deletion, or change to the agenda? Anyways, we just went through it, and if it's that, if it's that important, we can take it out. Commissioner Tompak, were you speaking to this, or were you speaking to something else?
Well, I wanted to pull 6E for just one couple of quick questions.
I'm interested as well.
Okay, that's fine. Just next time we'll do it, with the additions, deletions. All right, so, okay, going back to additions, deletions, changes, we already approved those two, so can I get a
I
motion to
will
approve those?
re-amend
Take out
my
A and
motion
E.
to pull A and E out of the consent agenda along with the other two, and I don't know where you want to put them, but I'm fine with
We'll just
anywhere.
put them, do you want to do it after PACE? Is that what you said, Vice Mayor Campo?
Sure.
Okay, we'll put A and E after the PACE resolution.
That's my motion.
So, all right. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Absolutely.
And so do we need another motion to approve the agenda as whole? Okay, all right. Mayor, or not mayor, Lawyer is nodding yes. So let's get a motion to approve the agenda final.
So move.
Get a second, please.
Second.
All right, call the vote.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo?
Aye.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Okay.
All right, now that we've got it straight, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda without items A and E?
You just did that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're good on
I'm
that
not surprised I got confused, to be honest. All right,
Now you need E. Letter E.
okay. Yeah, A and E. All right, so now we are going on to the PACE thing, correct?
Yes.
No, ma'am. If you're with the consent agenda still, then
Yes.
when you followed up now, you would go back to the consent agenda item
I
that
think
Commissioner
what we agreed
Tompak.
to in the vote was that we would move it after the pace.
No, ma'am.
We were going to move A and E after the PACE.
Both?
Yes,
That was the vote.
that was the vote. And then I had
I don't
forgotten
care
amidst that craziness that, did we approve the consent agenda without A and E? You guys told me yes somehow. That has slipped my mind. So then we are moving to the PACE resolution and then A and E. Is that okay?
That's what you voted. Mr. Tompak was ready to speak.
Well, normally if you pull an agenda item, consent agenda item, you discuss it right after you
Okay.
approve the agenda, but if we did it the other way, I guess we
Okay.
can do it
I
that
think
way.
they'll be short, so we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
You're the expert at this kind of,
Hardly.
this kind of stuff. So let's move on to the consent agenda, item E, because we're taking the financials off until a later date. Is that correct, Vice Mayor, until?
Do you want to talk about
I
it?
just wanted to give him a chance to get back to his sick child, so we're going to do it after his presentation.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. The expert on the financials is not here, so if you wanted to ask the town manager if she thinks she can answer them, or we could put it on the next meeting, which is not that far off.
I'd like to do it tonight, but I'm willing to wait to give them a chance to get up and,
I'm interested in the question you have.
Okay, so we're going to item E. Commissioner Tompak.
Yeah, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about this at the last meeting, and I guess I was surprised to see it listed here as not requiring or requesting any further consideration. I wonder if we're kind of kicking the can down the road and whether we should be looking at it, because it sounds like to me that right now it's dead in the water, and if there's any applications for boathouses on the east side, that it's going to be handled as a variance, and is that what we really want to do as a commission? That's kind of my question. And I know that there's been a question about seagrass growth relevant to docks and boathouses, and one of the things we may want to consider if we do want to go back to coming up with a revised ordinance is that there's a way to to optimize seagrass planting, and we could look at it as part of a mitigation plan, almost like they do for wetlands. There's several organizations in the area that will plant seagrass, so if we're worried about seagrass growth on the east side, we could certainly, convince the person that wants to build to donate or put a certain amount of money aside for seagrass restoration, if that's what the commission wanted to do. I wasn't sure if we just wanted to let it die a natural death here, or if we really wanted to go back and do something about it.
Okay,
That was my question.
okay. Did you want to speak to that topic, Commissioner Fender?
I have similar questions, but do we need to address his concern first? And
I was of the thought, after hearing, about the potential impact on seagrass and the fact that the ordinance was, I thought, in theory, designed with that in mind. And personally, I heard from the building inspector, which is important, but I haven't gotten emails, or I haven't heard a lot from residents personally saying that this was an issue near and dear to them. So I had figured we would just go status quo. That's where I was. But if
okay,
it's
so
the
then
rest
now I
of
have
the commission
questions
is.
about that.
Okay. Commissioner
So,
Fender.
correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, the status quo is that we've allowed 2 houses to get built out there that we know nothing about, and I think the seagrass issue is critical, and I like the mitigation concept, but I'm interested in seeing what these things were that were built, and then if we're just letting it die on the vine, does that mean that we get a third that we don't know about?
So maybe a workshop item? If one of you guys is.
Yeah, I just want to know what the plan is. I mean,
I think the plan was nothing as of now, but obviously if
well,
it's.
to me, it means not allow any until we approve them, but apparently that's not the plan, because we got 2 out there without us knowing about it.
Well, I think those will, I don't know the status for ones that were there before.
I don't either. That's
The
why I
building
like
that
the
was
item,
built
because I figure we're going to learn some stuff.
Whatever, well, that's kind of more of just building code compliance as opposed to this issue. So I kind of separate them out, but if we want to like fix it for the future, you're talking about, so I would think a workshop item would make the most sense. I don't know my other commission, you know, if
I'd
it's
like
a-
to know where the town manager stands. Because she's going to drive this through with the building official, right?
I assume, we could
I mean,
ask
that's why
Jack.
it's off, it's died on the vine, I assume.
Yeah, I thought that was just the ordinance, not the impact of our code.
Let me
Okay.
preface my statement very politely, that I don't look at this as a money-making item. I look at this as a conservation and aesthetics item. So I'd love to make money at it, but I would also like the aesthetics of the town to be preserved. So.
Town manager or Jack, did you want to speak to?
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, we weren't looking at it as a money-making item either. We were not aware of the seagrass conversation. Former Mayor Thurlow Lippisch brought that to our attention, and so with all of the controversial and potentially polarizing conversations we're having over these next couple of months, I felt as though it was something that would, be worth waiting for later. We currently have somebody coming in front of the variance board for one boat lift cover on the east side, and we currently have another person for the west side that's bringing a boat lift cover variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so that's the way we'll handle it, is going through the proper process, which is the BZNA. When we brought it to you, it's because we knew that we had a couple of residents coming and being interested, and I said, let's see if the commission is hearing also from other residents. If it's not an issue and it's a onesie-twosie that we can handle through the BZA, we can continue to do that. Commissioner Tom Peck's idea of creating an opportunity to contribute back to a mitigation fund to grow seagrasses is interesting, and that would be all policy. And so I think his question is to you all and not to staff.
You can clear mine.
Okay, Commissioner Kurzman?
Yeah, I would like to know how long ago the two structures were built, and were there any permits given? Because nobody's mentioned anything about permits from either Jack or anybody. Would you know anything about that, Jack?
Yeah, he'll come up.
Okay.
The building official will come up, and,
Clear
as we push back on areas and people, residents who did not get permits, we would have an expectation that they will call you on that as well. So we're trying to be solution-oriented before we got to that position.
Good evening. As far as I know, there's two. When they were built, I don't know until I actually start, in getting into the facts on when did they actually put them up and who actually built those. The reason why I was kind of like holding off on that too is like I want to see what their options will be, depending on which way the council decides on how to pursue it. Whether you can go ahead and keep it, but you're going to have to get a permit, but you're going to have to either lower or put a different covering on, or whatever the options are, whatever you choose, so that it complies with all the other ones and doesn't stand out to be indifferent than all the others. But that's probably the best case. Otherwise, I can go ahead and start cases now and not give them any options, because there are no options except for going before the P&Z board for an exception for that. So I was waiting to hear.
Okay. Commissioner Kurzman, does that help?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Commissioner Fender, and then
Well, so
Vice
based
Mayor.
on what you're saying, I'm actually interested now in making a motion to put this back on the agenda for some future date. I don't care when it is. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but
Okay.
after, budgets hearings are done.
Do we
But
need
I
a
just don't want it
motion
to
for
fall
that, or
through the
can we-
cracks and we lose it, right? So.
Okay. Vice Mayor Campo?
Yeah, I'm the risk manager, so I'm concerned from Glenn's perspective on how precedents of boat lifts with roofs on them might cause problems with, maybe someone wants to land a helicopter on one. Is that going to complicate any issue of that still to be not fully resolved issue that we've got? Because I don't want to give anyone a leg up on saying that we don't enforce things or we're selectively enforcing them, and open us up to that situation coming back to haunt us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a very good point, and I think that if there is going to be an amendment, you want to make it clear that any roof is non-weight bearing, or whatever Jack's terminology would be, that it's not able to support more than 10 pounds or 20 pounds, whatever the minimum is, and whether it's a flat roof or a slanted roof.
That is in the ordinance on that. It has to be slanted. It can't be a flat roof because of, I believe, a pad.
And the two in question are slanted?
Yes, they're pitched, yes.
Okay. And Town Manager, we wouldn't need a motion to put it on a future agenda, is that correct?
No, you can just give me that consensus, and we'll look to do it, I would guess, October, November.
Does that work for
If that
Commissioner
works.
Fender?
Yeah, it works. I just want to make sure that the way it was worded in here is that it was dying on the vine, and as long as it's not clear in the record that we're crushing the item that we are bringing up in the future, that's fine for me.
Okay, all right. Vice Mayor Campo?
Point of clarification, are the only two meetings we're going to be having in September those two budget meetings and not meetings for regular business?
No, sir, you have scheduled meetings for regular business as well.
Okay, okay. So on those meetings, we are not necessarily talking about budget. We have opportunities to talk about other items.
Correct. The others are public hearings that we had to advertise separately.
Okay, all right. You guys all good? Now, I think we are moving on to the PACE resolution. Sorry about that. Yes, you can come on up. Town Clerk, would you please read the title into the record?
Sure. A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewell Point, Florida, permitting property assessed clean energy PACE programs within the corporate limits of the Town of Sewell Point, approving agreements with the Florida Green Finance Authority, the Florida Resiliency and Energy District, and the Florida PACE Funding Agency, and the Green Corridor PACE District, utilizing voluntary non-ad valorem assessments to finance qualifying improvements, authorizing the mayor or designee to execute said agreements, and providing for implementing administrative actions, Scrivener's errors, conflicts, severability, and effective date.
All right, thank you, Town Clerk. Yes, and if you want to come up and state your name for the record, I believe, is it Chris?
Chris Peterson, correct, and thank you again for the accommodation. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So, as you may recall, we did a presentation on the request of one of your fine residents, Martin Drummond. We came and did a presentation and described the program. Again, it's about options. There's no silver bullet, as we've heard tonight a couple times, for storm hardening, energy efficiency, and resiliency. This is one way to finance it, one of several, but the idea is that we'd like to offer this particular option to homeowners if they choose to use it. It's not voluntary. There's no public dollars involved. It's all private capital, and it's been adopted in about 75% of the state already. So, and again, we came here on the request of one of your residents.
All right.
And I'm here to answer any questions if
Okay.
you have.
Thank you very much. Any discussion amongst the commission regarding this resolution? Seeing none.
I move approval.
I second.
All right, no discussion. Town Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Compaq?
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor.
No, I think it seems like a great program. Thank you. Bye. All right, now, you can't see it on the agenda, but we're moving on to financials from the consent agenda.
Funny, forgot about that.
I'm remembering this in my head, so.
Nice work.
All right. Vice Mayor, did you want to?
Yeah, if, Michelle, if you need help from Cheryl and she's not here, I understand. A few things. I know we're well in play with the new software system. Would you say that we're fully operational on the new software system and everything's hunky-dory? And because I've tried to, allow time for the detail of the implementation to sink in. Do you think that we're there yet, or?
Yeah, I do believe we're there with transferring everything over. I think that the cleanliness and the ability to easily read it probably won't occur until your next fiscal year, because there's multiple line items that can be combined, but it's the transfer of the information and doing it so in a way that the auditors will be able to understand as well. So some of that looks confusing, but all of the information is in here.
So as we fine-tune it, there has always been my favorite column on the spreadsheets, and it's not, appearing anymore, and that was a year-to-date expenditure as compared to the period of time that we're through the budget cycle. So that column has disappeared, and that was a single column where we could look through our revenue, and if we're, let's say, just to keep a simple number, 6 months into the budget, we could look down one single column and say 50%. Now, revenue is, kind of lopsided in some of these. So I'm missing that. I'm missing my favorite column. And then the encumbered versus unencumbered, I don't know if we necessarily need that. I mean, I know that you run out of columns, and I'm reminded that my eyesight is failing each time I look at these a little bit more. So that's just something that I've kind of missed, because for some folks that maybe don't like spreadsheets as much as I do, it's a very easy way for you to compare expenses and revenue mid-year to measure whether we're on track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So on the second column, this is year to date. So that will be from your fiscal beginning of the year, October 1st, to the end of the month that this financial is for. So for this purpose, it will be through July 31st, 2021. And then I think the column you're looking for now has moved all the way to the end, and that's the percentage of the budget used, and that would be specifically the percentage of the line items that are outlined, to give you that at-a-glance look that you're looking for.
Okay, well, I don't want to spend a lot of time further on that. I'll take a look at that. If we were to look at, on the second page of the expenses.
I just want to, up here is the percentage of the fiscal year completed, 83.29.
Okay,
That's different too than the last documents that we used to give you.
I think that's the number you're looking for, Mr. Campo.
right.
Because you can compare that to the last column, and I think that's the numbers you're interested in.
Okay, so, but what we had in the past was specific to the month. So we would have, July's expense as well as the year-to-date expense. If you could mention it to Cheryl, I think she would understand and remember how it used to be done, okay?
Correct, sir. And I do remember you asking for that in the past. And, from a perspective of following a P&L, whether it's in the government or in the private sector, we absolutely monitor the month by month, but we manage, what we always say is you manage to the right side of the page, whether in your private sector or in here. The right side of the page is that year-to-date, and that is the most important. We can look to add another column if you prefer to have that additional information.
Well, when you review a monthly P&L, I'd like to see the month, not just,
I think, and Vice Mayor, I've asked her about other columns before. She seems
Okay.
like, oh, I can do
Have
that.
her-
So
have
she
her-
seems,
We can
Maybe.
do it, it's about simplicity and being able
But
to
I-
fit
yeah.
everything on one page sometimes.
yeah, but the encumbered, unencumbered,
she could
And I
see
think-
how it looks.
Yeah.
She could do it.
Yeah, she's going to give you what you want. So
Okay.
let me start by saying, we're going to give you what you want.
right, okay. So
We,
then-
the unencumbered and the encumbered is new, and
Yeah.
we really wanted to start to have that conversation because we've had conversations with both our commissioners and our residents about how much money we have versus how much money we've set aside and said, we've already spent this. Now it's encumbered.
Right.
And so we want to be able to try and show that in the right way that makes it as simple as possible.
Pointing out that number that's at the top, percentage of fiscal year completed, is helpful, so thank you.
Okay.
So now on the second page, expenses, like the fourth one from the bottom, stormwater improvements, amended budget, $3,178,395.
So I'm on expenses now.
Right there, we passed it. Yeah, the one.
What number is it?
At the bottom.
Fourth from the bottom?
001519.
630?
538.631.
Yeah, so then go over, about 4 columns over, the one above that.
Okay. Stormwater improvements. All right, I
The
got it.
3178, see that? The biggest number on the page. See that? 31. So that's the amount that we had, that's the amended budget for the big project that we're working on in South Sewell's Point. You had it right?
Correct. It's under the 2021 amended budget.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, the 3,178. So that number, that 3,178,000 number. My question is, does that include the budget amendments that were made? One was for 300 or 350, and one was last week.
This will include anything through 7/31.
Okay, so then, I guess the big question, and again, don't have to tell it to me right now, but how much have we spent on the South Sewell's Point Road Improvement STA drainage project?
I will get that information to you.
Okay.
And certainly in the future, if you want to ask for that, I can make sure it's here for you when we have the meeting.
Okay, and so, the other question, I'm kind of jumping to number 12, and if you want to discuss it on number 12, we can, is since we have the format of a detailed budget firmly in place and we're comfortable with the software, why didn't we go to that level of elaboration when we're discussing the budget tonight? We're last business meeting of August, and we really haven't seen a full detailed budget yet. So since we're comfortable with this software, to me, it seemed like it would be easy enough to show the commission the full budget rather than the abbreviated version that we've been shown in item number 12. We can discuss that now, or we can
So
discuss.
this is actually a P&L. This is a profit and loss statement, if you will. And so we don't operate and offer a budget that looks like these line items. This is the micromanaging, of, if you will, of the bigger pots of money. This is accounting that attaches to purchase orders, that attaches to invoices, and the charter calls out that you should see financials monthly, which is why you receive these. In the past, I'm not sure you even received this much detail, before a couple of years ago. So we offer you this information, but certainly we don't expect this type of detail to be in your budget that you approve.
I don't know about that. So if you look at the columns, if you could just look at those columns, amended budget. Okay, so that is the budget for the year that we're in now, right?
Correct.
It may have been. So to me, to just drop in the numbers that you are proposing for 21 to 22 would be relatively easy.
I'm going to ask for clarity on that statement, and if that was a question.
My question is, since we have the format to drop in the budget amounts, why hasn't staff shown the commission the proposed budget for the next year? Here we are, the last week of August. We don't have
That is your item number 12.
but the detail is greatly reduced.
Correct, it is compressed.
Okay.
So it's just like an Excel spreadsheet that if you double-clicked on something, it would open up to the details. And we provide you and the reason we're providing it to you this way is that seems to be the comfort zone of the commission. When I look back over the last, I'd say 5 years, the sheets that you have on page, item 12 duplicate what you're used to seeing. And so we wanted to stay within your comfort zone. If you'd like it to be pulled out like this and a little bit more detail, we can absolutely do that for you.
Well, again, it's about getting the information out to the public as far in advance as possible and not just on the budget reading. And in the past, last year, I remember being so excited saying, thanks for going through the detail so far in advance because it made everything. We had a complete budget, I believe, in July. And even tonight, the end of August, item 12 is very compressed. So I would have rather to see that. We don't have to go into tit for tat, but
No, this is, excuse me, sir. This is not a tit for tat. This is answering your questions.
Okay.
Okay? And again, had you approached myself or Cheryl was at work yesterday, prior to the meeting, I could have had the information ready for you, and I would feel better about having that information ready for you. Last year, you're right, we took, I believe, August off as a board, as the vacation time. And so we did everything in July instead. And so we didn't do that this year. We took June off, and then came in with July, and we've just had a lot of work, so we've been getting it all done.
Okay.
So what you're seeing tonight is actually on schedule, if not a little early, before your public hearings.
It's different.
Tonight is for feedback, so it's perfect for you to give
Yeah.
feedback
Okay.
on what you're seeing.
We'll discuss that more when we get to item 12.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
and we can adjust.
Move on. All right. We are now going to ordinances.
Madam Mayor, I need to have a motion to accept the financials.
Oh, okay. Yes, we do.
So moved.
Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Fender,
Okay.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Peck,
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo.
Aye.
May I ask, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, do you all like so far what you're seeing from the new software?
Uh,
Other than adding that specific
I have
column that
discussed
Vice
with
Mayor?
Cheryl that I find the duplication that you mentioned a little confusing because you'll see the zeros and then you'll see some others. But she seemed to make it sound like she could work things more to our liking. She loves to talk about this stuff, so.
Yes, exactly. It's a math thing, right?
So I do appreciate the new software. I love that column at the end and the way it all works out. But yes, I think it could be cleaned up a little bit, but I'm happy with it. Any other commissioners? All right. Moving on to ordinances. This is there's no second reading, so this is item 8, public hearing ordinance first reading. Ordinance number 437, millage dedication. Town Attorney, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 437 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of Sewell Point, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Finance, Division 1, generally regarding dedicated funding for capital projects, severability, the repeal of loss of conflict, codification, and an effective date.
You're fast, Glenn. Thank you. All right.
I think this is first reading.
This is first reading.
You're right. I just said first because it was first on the agenda. I apologize. All right. First reading. Now, public hearing. Any comments? I see no comments, so I'm going to close the public hearing and now discussion amongst the commissioners. Commissioner Fender, please.
Sure. So I think probably I would suggest two things, or at least introduce two items for discussion. One is perhaps an additional whereas where we indicate that whereas there is an appropriation of, by the way, I should preface this with, I agree with the spirit of this ordinance, by the way. I think it's a good thing. I think it needs to be, the wording cleaned up perhaps a little, but whereas we are whereas something about we are appropriating a specific amount of money for capital projects. And then on section 2.243, it seems like the addition, the underlined area specifically states, if I read it the way I read it, that forever and in perpetuity, we will never raise the millage rate above 2.87. And I think that's probably not what we're trying to accomplish here, although that'd be awesome. But that's not how millage rates work, right? They're impacted by all kinds of parameters like inflation and everything else. So I have no idea what the millage rate will be 10 years from now. But I think what we want to do is say, I believe the spirit of this ordinance is that we intend to ensure that the amount that we have just voted on to contribute to the capital project is to be earmarked only for that and to be sunset at some time in the future. So you might be, and I would look to the town attorney perhaps to offer wording that would identify and contain that percentage of that specific mills associated with that, and I don't know how you word that, but I don't think it's a statement of 2.87. I think it's a statement of dedicated millage rate for capital projects. So I'll leave it at that for further discussion and somebody to correct my concept or make it more workable.
Town Attorney, did you want to address that?
Yes, and we've had some conversations, Michelle and I had these conversations this week, and even though we wrote this language, I don't love it for the reason that Commissioner Fender talked about, because it could lead one to think anything over the 2.87, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, is all going to go to capital. So one suggestion is the difference between the 2.87 and the proposed millage is 0.39, I believe. So you could read it as, for so long as the town levies a millage rate greater than 2.87 mils, a millage of 0.39 shall be dedicated and used solely for capital projects or debt service, including interest on capital projects, sunsetting on September 30th, 2036. So making it clear that it's the 0.39 that you're dedicating, so that if next year you go up a tenth of a mil or whatever you do, that extra amount wouldn't be locked into capital, if that's the intention. Because that's, after we've talked this through, it seemed like the intention was to dedicate that specific sum, that 0.39, and not whatever else may come up in the future, as Commissioner Fender said.
Okay, I think that's helpful. Thank you. Commissioner Tompak?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this, this a little bit, and the reason I'm struggling with it is because I was thinking that it might need to be even more restrictive based on our millage rate discussion. When we talked about the, raising the millage rate, we had made the, the decision to raise the millage rate based on what we thought the debt service was going to be on a loan, and that loan was going to be taken out for the road project, South Sewell's Point Road project. And, I assume that's, why it's talking about the sunsetting September 30th, 2036. That's when the debt service would be retired. The way this is worded makes me think that somebody could bring up another capital project that's not part of the South Sewell's Point Road project, and that certainly was not the intention when we raised the millage. The millage was specifically earmarked for that project. My recollection, and I couldn't dig up the paper this morning or this afternoon, my filing system really needs some work. We got a spreadsheet of the, the cost of completing the phases, and that was, my recollection was maybe $4.5 million spread over a number of years. And, that was what the increase in millage was. It wasn't, we weren't thinking about any other capital projects associated with that change in millage. So the way this is worded now, somebody could come back and say, hey, I'd like another project, and we can do it because this ordinance allows us to use capital, use money for the increase in millage for another capital project. And I don't think that was ever our intention. I think the reason we raised the millage was strictly to cover the South Sewell's Point Road project. And this is, I think it should be a little more restrictive so that we actually do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up the same point. I agree with Commissioner Tompak. 4 years from now, a new commission could be in here, and they could say, we want to put a second story on this building. That's a capital project, and that's where that could go. They could decide they want to put a fancy circle over here in front of Town Hall. They could do it. They could do anything they want. It's got to be specific just for this project only. And there has to be some restrictions. It's vague.
Commissioner Fender?
I was just going to say that that's not actually the way I remember it. I remember spending tons of time working on a long-term strategic plan on things that we need to do to improve the quality of our residents' living space. And some of that is beyond just raising the road. But I'm not saying we shouldn't restrict it. But I think the debt service you undertake needs to be sunset at some point, and it needs to end, and it can only go to those things that are capital projects that fulfill the spirit of the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan.
Are you, okay, I want to make sure you're done. So I'm all for the intent of this. I agree. We talked about it. This is what this raising of the millage was for. That's what I've been talking to everybody about, is for this road project. I'm not a lawyer, we have one in the room, but it seems strange to put in an ordinance a particular project, because I always think of code, the law, the code is more intent and purpose for a longer period of time. So I'm not saying that I don't support an ordinance, but maybe a resolution if you wanted to get more detailed as to the particular project. Are there, Glenn, I mean, do people put specific things into ordinance that seem so permanent for, and even though in theory, any commission can change an ordinance when they want? That's what this, that's how it always comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly somewhat unusual to have a commission restrict themselves like this, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. Also, the question that I've had, is this premature? I mean, until you, and I think right now, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're out now for proposals for financial advisor, potentially a bond counsel, or we will be soon. It almost seems maybe you wait till that financial advisor is selected, and then have your discussions, decide how much you're financing, and then that loan, whatever form it's going to take, is going to have restrictions, and you're going to have a repayment schedule. And it's probably going to be right around this 0.39 mils, because that's all the conversations that you've had, unless the South Sewell Point Road project, for example, all of a sudden comes in $5 million on the budget, right, Joe? But I understand the concept that you want to let the public know that you're raising this millage specifically for capital projects or capital project. That's the discussion. But again, do you need an ordinance to do that? That's up to you. You could do an ordinance, you could do a resolution, or you could simply, you've already had enough conversations and motions supporting this concept to say, once our financial advisor, whoever he or she is, makes the presentation and we decide what we're borrowing, you're then going to dedicate a source of revenue to repay that. Now, you're not going to dedicate ad valorem dollars unless you're doing a bond issue, because there's restrictions on that. But you have to dedicate other sources of non-ad valorem dollars that are going to pay back that loan. And let's face it, it's almost robbing Peter to pay Paul, because if you're currently using, make up a scenario, you're currently using $10 in gas tax money for whatever, and now you're going to pledge that revenue to this repayment, and that might get backfilled with ad valorem dollars. But at the end of the day, there's only so many dollars in the pot, and it's just a matter of the restrictions that state law imposes on you and not being able to pledge ad valorem dollars, your real property dollars, unless there's a bond issue. And from what I'm hearing, unless your financial advisor comes in and says, that's the way to go, for some reason, a bond issue is your best financial vehicle. So right now, I think, at least I am, and maybe you all are too, a little bit speculating as to what this financing vehicle is going to look like. But I hear what you're trying to accomplish, and again, we could do it by a motion, you could do it by a resolution, you could do it by an ordinance, saying that your intent is that you're going to dedicate 0.39 mils of your millage to South Sewell's Point Road, and I guess that's where the discussion internally is going to be, is that just for the South Sewell's Point Road project, or is it for capital projects in general? But either way,
What did you mean by a motion? You had said resolution, there's an ordinance, you said you could just do a motion. Would that literally just be?
one of you example can make a motion that says, I hereby move that we're going to dedicate 0.39 mils, at least in this budget year, to capital projects. I mean, that gives the sense of the commission that that's your motion, and that is your policy unless you change your policy. A resolution is only a little more formal way of making a motion.
Okay, all right.
And then an ordinance is obviously the most formal, because that requires 2 readings, it becomes a law, and change it takes 2 readings.
Okay, all right, thank you, Glenn. Commissioner Fender.
I don't want to get too far astray of the spirit of this ordinance, and I didn't draft it, it's not mine. I just believe in the spirit of containing whatever this millage rate increase is. So I'll be happy to understand what, what the goal is of this ordinance.
Commissioner Tompak?
I'm thinking that Glenn's making a good point here, that this might be a little premature. And the reason being is that once we've figured out how we're going to finance this, that debt service may be less than the millage increase, which will allow us to maybe do some other capital projects within the millage increase. But we're kind of, we don't know the answer to that because really we haven't gotten through the financing part of it yet.
All right, good point. Commissioner Fender?
I'll hold my comments for now.
Okay. Vice Mayor Campo?
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, because I know that there's some tendency to do that, but the having something like this in place before the vote comes up in September gives commissioners the luxury of saying the millage was increased, but we put a fence around it and we dedicated it to capital improvements. That's a reason to pass this. So I'm just putting that out there. And I'll just say one other thing, just since I'm the old man on the board. There's been a perception out there that Tom Bausch used to use the expression, just to put the lights on, just to put the lights on. Remember, Tina? Yeah. There's a perception out there that just to keep the lights on at Town Hall, that it costs 2.87 mils. And again, I don't want to get in, we're a commission, we have different voices, we need to hear those voices, and we have votes and we have other issues. But in the past 6 years or longer, 10 years, even when the ad valorem was below 2.87, we were able to do the A1A undergrounding of utilities and the median improvements. We were able to do 3 pocket parks. We were able to do the playground. We were able to do North Sewell's Point septic to sewer. We were able to do what we're doing right now in South Sewell's Point. So the 2.87 in the past was ample to include some capital improvements.
Commissioner Fender.
So again, I agree wholeheartedly with the start of that conversation. I think 2.87 is an arbitrary number, and it will fluctuate based on the impact of inflation. But I think, my understanding, the spirit of this ordinance is that we want to do exactly what you articulated very well when you started speaking about putting a container around whatever this millage rate increase is, so it can't be applied to anything others like keeping the lights on or raising salaries and doing whatever. That millage increase was only dedicated to the issue we had with South Sewell's Point and projects related to the betterment of the community. So I like the idea of finding a way to word it that we will not be spending any millage rate increase on things other than capital projects. So that when we go through the budget process, we don't start applying that millage rate increase to other things.
Correct. I think we all agree that, the good news is, I think we all agree that any millage over 2.87 should all be going towards the South Sewell's Point Road project. I think the question is, how are we going to create this? I agree with, I don't want to do work, to Commissioner Tompeck's point, or put something in an ordinance that then is going to have to be changed, because that also is extra money and time and effort. So I would err on, and I'm looking for options, because maybe a resolution currently, Glenn, and then after do an ordinance if that's still needed. I mean, I realize the ordinance is more official, but it also costs money to make ordinances, and it's more, it makes sense to do this prudently. I mean, we do agree on what we're using it for.
Back to like Municipal Law 101. An ordinance is a law. You pass a law to regulate the behavior of the community, whether it's a speeding law or a zoning law. It's regulating people not sitting up here on the dais. A resolution is generally policy setting, regulating yourselves. And I've noticed that there seems to be a tendency, not just in Sewell's Point, but I've kind of noticed as this drift towards commissions adopting ordinances to do things that you certainly can, but do you really need to pass a law to say, this is what we're going to internally do? It's your policy. Let's face it, you can change an ordinance, you can change a law. The difference is an ordinance is a little more expensive because you got to do it twice and you got to advertise it in the paper, where a resolution is only one reading. But just kind of remember the basics. An ordinance is a law that generally affects the community as a whole and regulates behavior, whether it's zoning behavior, traffic behavior, where resolutions are more a sense of the policy of the commission. You pass a resolution supporting something, adopting personnel policies. You don't pass personnel policies by ordinance, they're a resolution. So that would be my suggestion.
Why didn't you give us this on an ordinance?
Because I think that my understanding of the direction was an ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's easy enough to change it to a resolution. And we didn't have this, I frankly thought tonight's conversation was going to be more of a conversation.
Right. No, I remember there was discussion about putting this in,
But if you did want, for example, a resolution I'm thinking the language that I read before, with the exception of Commissioner Fender's point about, Commissioner Tomczyk's point about South Sewell's Point Road or broader, if you just simply say, on version, 3 different versions of it here, as long as you're levying a millage rate greater than 2.87, the funds collected from the additional millage rate up to the 0.39 mils shall be dedicated to you solely for capital projects, or debt service on the capital projects. If that's the direction, we could have that resolution here in your September meeting. You can adopt that the same time you're adopting your budget or your millage rate.
Okay.
And they seem to go more hand in hand.
Commissioner Fender? Thank you, Glenn.
I was going to say, that just to your point about the ordinances to contain residents, I think there are plenty of residents in our constituency who would like some of our commissioners to be contained, right? So, I mean, that's the reason for this ordinance, is to make sure that we don't do anything as commissioners with this money that we're not supposed to do. And we sunset it, which everybody says, oh, once they raise it, it's never going back. Well, I think the rule of this ordinance is to ensure that it does indeed go back, right? So.
Commissioner Tomczak?
Yeah, just a quick question. If we should pass such a resolution, do you somehow put the money in restricted funds so that it can't be used for anything else? Is there a way of doing that, since it will be part of the ad valorem taxes? Can you segregate it into a restricted fund?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is simple, is yes. We would typically, though, just keep it in the same funds, which is interest-bearing, and separate it out in our budget, which you currently are going to see on item 12. And so you'll have a piece of paper that says you have a law, and we're still going to have the budget exactly the same way as we're showing it to you now. So, the ordinance itself, if I may, right?
Sure.
My concern is that we're going to change it multiple times within a very short period of time. So, right now, you're trying to establish those boundaries so that we satisfy the concerns that the public might have. However, we also are going out for financial advisors, and those financial advisors may say, create an ordinance that speaks specifically to the projects, and then links specifically the amount of money so that they can connect it to their debt service. Then we'll have to advertise the law again, twice, and then we'll have to, read it again. And I just feel as though it's typically a commission doesn't want to change a law over and over again in short periods of time. And so we want to make good law. And so workshopping it or waiting until the financial advisor might be the right way. You are absolutely able to assure your public at this time that a budget is being created that you have control over, that all of the funding is allocated into a line item that is only controlled by capital per the commission, and every one of those items has to be voted on by you. So the ordinance that you want to create is really about the future commissions, because you all have control over what you're doing right now with the budgets.
Thank you, Town Manager. Glenn?
I'm not the finance person. Apparently Commissioner Campo and Ms. Berger are much better at that, but I'm going back and looking at your budget or at the financials, and on page 29, I noticed that you have a little over $1 million in a disaster reserve. Now, I don't think that reserve's there by ordinance. You've set that policy. You said, we're going to keep $1 million in a disaster reserve, $1,007,000 actually.
Yeah.
And this is no different to me. To Commissioner Tomczyk's point, you're going to have a budget line item that says South Sewell's Point Capital, or however Cheryl words it, but you're going to dedicate that money to that line item. Is that, to my two financial folks there,
No,
does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. You're correct.
Free financial, CPA,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
So, I want to make sure my fellow commissioners are comfortable. I'm comfortable with us all agreeing on the fact that that is what we are going to do, but I also, the resolution until, I don't think it makes sense to do an ordinance at this point in time without more solid data, because I agree that you don't want to redo laws. So there would have to be some more solid data, like the debt service or however long that would be to do a proper sunset date. So would the commission be open to a resolution to help, make the parameters and show the public that this is what we want to do? I'm open to your all suggestions as to how to proceed.
Madam Mayor, may I remind the commission, and Glenn can expand on it, when you adopt the budget, it is adopted, but because of your charter says it has to be, by resolution. And so actually in that resolution, you can create the whereases that you want.
Okay.
And your legal team can create that document that the charter says you have to adopt. And you can put the language that you want in it, and that would hold for this fiscal year.
I like the idea of putting it in the budget resolution.
Okay. Other commissioners? I see you getting ready,
I'll
Commissioner
support
Fender.
you on that too.
Okay. Commissioner Fender, what do you?
I'm just trying to understand why Vice Mayor's not fighting for this harder than he is. I mean, 'cause this is his thing, right? This is your ordinance? You're being very quiet about it, and I'm trying to support you.
I spoke to it.
Okay, all right.
I'm not fundamentally against the ordinance. It just seems that,
Usually you're very articulate, is all I'm saying. So, I mean, that's cool. I can't fight harder than I'm fighting right now, is what I'm saying.
Didn't have my Dr. Pepper before.
Okay, should have brought one for you.
Madam Mayor, may I
Yes.
ask a blunt question? I think the concern for your staff and for a legal team is that we're trying to thread a very fine needle here. We want to give you the information that you want to be comfortable to be able to pass this tax rate that we've talked about, and we recognize that it's going to need to be at least a 4-to-1 vote. And so, Commissioner Fender, while you're looking to Vice Mayor for that guidance, I think the commission and your staff need to know if you're not comfortable with that and you want us to pursue a ordinance, tell us now so that we don't get behind the 8 ball and then not be able to fulfill the guidance that you've given already.
Commissioner Fender.
I don't think anything's changed about my stance. I'm saying that my stance was, when I voted for it, that we were going to contain it. And I still believe we're going to contain it, and I'd like to contain it. That's why I'm happy about an ordinance that puts some, it doesn't have to be an ordinance. That's why I'm happy with a structure that puts something in place to ensure that this indeed does go where we intend it to go and doesn't go for pay increases or whatever else, that's
Exactly.
highlighted for it. So I
Exactly.
like
And couldn't that be contained in the budget resolution? Would that be?
I could be convinced of that.
We want you to be on board, and feel comfortable with.
I just want to know that we're putting this where we say we're going to put it, and I trust you that we are, right? But I'd like, I'd be happy to have something in writing that says we're going to do that. Not for me or you, but for the commission 10 years down the road that we have no control over, right? So
Madam
I don't know
Mayor.
what that structure is, by the way. It may not be an ordinance. But by the way, I'm fighting this, but I didn't put this ordinance in place. When you brought it up, I thought it was dandy, but you're not fighting for it, so I
Vice
can't
Mayor?
support it if it's not.
I'm sorry.
No, I am fighting for it. I'm amazed that it's gotten this far, but I knew that hurdles would be faced. Y'all remember the lottery? Remember the lottery that was going to go to help kids' education? And I'm sorry, the bureaucracy in Tallahassee figured out, why don't we take all this extra money they're giving us and then we could spend all the money someplace else. I think we probably need to be tighter in defining what is a capital project. I mean, is that maintenance? Is that fixing up town hall? Is that police cars? And then what about the money that we were spending on police cars? A police car is a capital improvement because it's over 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to see maybe a definition of what capital improvement
That would
is.
help a little bit.
But, I was,
I guess I thought it would be on our capital improvement plan if it was a capital project, and we don't.
well,
have
again,
work on there.
my point is that, pass the lottery because we're going to help kids. And again, this isn't personal, but the bureaucracy takes over and says, where are we going to find money? And so they took all that extra lottery money, and then they took the money that was allocated towards education and put it in, pork barrel type stuff. I'm not saying anything about Sewell's Point. I don't want to get anyone touchy, but I think this isn't just about future commissions. This is about the finance officer and the town manager who all of a sudden,
Can't do that.
want to have, there's like, wow, we've got to do something, and then, well, why don't we look over there? And the money that we were going to spend over there, we now flip over to capital improvements.
Let's focus on this ordinance. And we did more just about how to execute it as opposed to why we like it. The The question is, I have stated I support this if this is what the commission needs. I don't personally think it's necessary, but I support it because I support the project and I support using all that millage that's raised on the project only. So I'm looking to specifically Commissioner Fender because in the last vote, you were the fourth vote essentially. So what would keep you feeling satisfied that the parameters have been
Well,
set?
to me, this thing is geared towards our comprehensive strategic plan that we put on a 3-year, 5-year, 15-year, and 30-year list of strategic items. And that's why you're saying project versus projects. To me, this funding is to make the community better, both aesthetically, infrastructurally, and recreationally for our residents to increase their property values. So to me, that's why the capital projects that perhaps Vice Mayor is talking about are tied to that strategic plan that I think we spend a lot of time building.
Glenn, were you gonna?
I'm trying to think if I could help out maybe with some kind of belt and suspender approach, where for the budget resolution, you include it in this year's budget, but then you also have a separate resolution similar to this that talks about the 15 years, so that you're accomplishing the goals of looking forward, but you're also in this budget year, and maybe this budget year a little more restrictive. Maybe for this year you say all of it is going to be dedicated to South Sewell's Point Road, or maybe you say 90% of it is going to be dedicated to South Sewell's Point Road. I think that's getting into too much level of detail, frankly, and I think that's almost illustrates how hard that is to do until you have discussions. That's why I hear my commissioner here to my right, and dedicating it, several of you talking about dedicating it just to South Sewell's Point Road, but I also hear, Commissioner Fender talking about other projects. So it could be that the primary purpose is South Sewell's Point Road, but during this budget year, if the commission decides by a motion that you're going to use some of that money for another capital project that's within your plan, that's acceptable. Give yourselves a little flexibility. I'm trying not to tie your hands too much. I hear you want to tie your hands.
And by the way, I'm okay with you tying our hands, because that'd be more financially conservative, but
What about a separate resolution that said, then it would only be for the year with the budget, it'll be in the budget, as Glenn said, as the item, a separate resolution that says just for, because odds are we're not going to get to any of those other projects the next year.
that's.
So just for, saying,
Maybe.
I don't know, so just the South Sewell's Point Road project, a separate resolution, and then, and then we go on and approve the budget where it's a separate line item. And then the ordinance, if you feel the need, then we bring that up, and once we have more detail. Does that sound like a good?
I don't know, it's fine. I'm not super passionate about this, although I do want it contained.
Okay, all right. Town manager, does that sound like a?
I think that accomplishes exactly what you're looking for, Commissioner Fender. Two things I wanted to mention. Other projects, I think when this initial discussion started, there was a thought that we would try and get as many of those projects that are on your capital list as possible, but that was when we were talking about a 5-0 vote where the millage rate was going to be more and it was going to garner a higher amount of money at the end of the day that can be used for multiple projects. With the 4-1 vote that has happened, that is only going to garner the amount of money that we would need to service the debt for a $4 to $5 million. And that's why it would need to be dedicated specifically to the South Sewell's Point resiliency projects. Anything more than that would just not, we wouldn't be able to pay that note. The concerning thing in the next couple of years is the advancement of the fire contract and just the, additional costs of doing business. I mean, CPI is changing, and we need to be cognizant of all of those things.
That was helpful. Thank you, Town Manager. Commissioner Fender?
I agree with that, and you know that we did a little bit of calculus on this before the vote, and we've found that the fire rescue plan was built into the 2.87 in a special column, and whatever it is to service this note, we came up with that value based on servicing the note it would take to finish the project. As the project goes forward, that's a pretty big number. maybe inflation hurts us, but maybe you find that there's still some things that can be accomplished within that debt amount. So I don't want to
Yeah.
tie your hands from being able to use those if that becomes available, but I also don't want to raise the number. I want to keep that number contained, and I want to keep it, and want to allow it to sunset and go away, and let some future commission decide to do something else, right?
I wanted to ask,
So, which, by the way, sorry, which means that we're focused on South Sewell's Point Road, by the way.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's, goes without saying.
If I may, the second thing is maintenance. Maintenance must be part of what we can use that money for. Because as Vice Mayor has called out the previous projects that they were able to do with the 2.87 mils, I think the undergrounding of A1A, that was done, I believe, right after you increased the millage rate in 2015, so we were able to execute that in like 16 or 17.
It was actually done before I was on the commission.
Okay.
That was under Bob Kelly.
Oh, okay. I show it as a 2015 increase when I was looking back.
The rate went up.
Yeah. And then the pocket parks that were able to be done, they created more maintenance. And so while you were able to create an asset within that 2.87, the byproduct of those assets are the additional maintenance that comes along with it that must be paid in that same 2.87. I'm asking you, if you move forward with a strong resolution or a dedicated millage ordinance, that you utilize the verbiage maintenance to allow monies there to use it, or 2.87 will never be able to pay the maintenance that will need to happen.
Can you do that because that's an O&M cost as opposed to a capital cost? Can you mix those two like that?
And that's a question
From
for,
an accounting standpoint,
we've heard it both ways, where it's maintenance for capital, it's called CapEx, capital maintenance.
I thought it was always if it improved the life, then it was capitalized. If it was going to make it live longer, if it's really just maintenance, it's not.
it's
really
an O&M and it's not capital, but
It's like our stormwater is what I'm worried
extend the
about.
life, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I wanted to, before I get to these three, I wanted to ask, because there was the difference between, how to move forward. Commissioner Tompeck, you had said you wanted the verbiage for specific. The suggestion I had put forward, are you still wanting the specific, the resolution that's specific? Do you want it just South Sewell's Point Road? Commissioner Fender was more capital projects, so I'm looking to find the,
I want it just South Sewell's Point Road. I would not have voted for the millage increase if I thought it was being used for anything other than South Sewell's Point Road.
okay. So, okay, let me get to these, but remember the thing I said in the resolution with that verbiage, and then it would be, readdressed for the next year. All right, I think it was Commissioner Fender. I don't remember.
I'll let them go first.
Commissioner Kurzman?
James was actually before me, too. so-
Okay, Commissioner, I'm sorry, I truly did not see you.
Oh,
Vice Mayor, if you were first, go ahead.
So we haven't even passed a resolution or an ordinance, and we're already calling what I would call capital would be asphalt and STAs. And now we're already hearing from staff, well, we got to throw maintenance in there. So I understand that perspective, and I understand that, but that's why I think defining capital projects, because I go back to John's approach, that was, what he just said was that's the reason that he voted for that. And that's what people are going to be coming up to and saying, why did you vote for the increase? And if you said, well, it's because of South Sewell's Point Road flooding, and, well, was there any enforcement of that? Well, not really. Well, it was kind of a optional, well, it might be maintenance, and before you know it, the whole thing kind of starts to cave in. So I guess that's all. I kind of lost my train of thought after that.
Commissioner Kurzman?
yeah. One of the other things I recall, I wasn't a commissioner then, but I was saying on the other side, I believe, when you get the outfalls have great expense. We had situations, because part of the project you have to have outfalls for. When you have that, you have mangroves, and I believe that the town was poorly maintained prior to, and I think we ran into a point where the outfall was no longer working because the mangroves had to be cut. Then to cut the mangroves, you had to have a specialist, and I think it was originally quoted like $250,000. You were up here, was it $250,000? It was some crazy number. So you really want to keep on top of maintenance. If you don't maintain it inexpensively, consistently, you're going to run into tremendous bills. And that's what you want to try and prevent. Maintenance is going to be here. Once you do the project, the maintenance isn't going to go away. The maintenance is probably continuous. You're going to have all these outfalls. In addition to that, you're going to have dirt and sand and leaves, all types of debris going into these drains. They're going to have to get cleaned out. They're not going to clean themselves. So it's just part of what we have to do to maintain this. The other part is pretty much like Commissioner Tompick said. I agree. I'm only going to support for the 2.87 strictly for Sewell's Point Road on this. Otherwise, I don't want the money going elsewhere toward anything else right now, because on top of that, eventually, maintenance and other things, and I would like to know if maintenance falls underneath the project expense or not. Will that be a separate, small raise in the millage after we get done with this?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, but I think the item at hand here, I think I just looked at it, 330,000. It seems like that's not that much, and it could obviously be directly put to just the capital improvements of South Sewell's Point Road, even though the maintenance will still exist and we'll have to address that. I feel confident in saying it can all be put to the actual project matching funds, all the things that we've been saying it's for. Town manager.
The maintenance for South Sewell's Point Road will not be that high for the next year, obviously. So, this upcoming year is a good opportunity for us to start to save towards that maintenance. But to build on Commissioner Kurzman's idea, the outfalls, the stormwater projects in general, those are assets. And just as a reminder, when I first started working here, there was a $26,000 clawback from FEMA we were trying to get for Irma. And it did not happen because the maintenance was not done on those assets. And so I don't mean maintenance on, simply flowers. I mean structural maintenance. But additionally, you're seeing what's happening down there. Grass is getting added, some landscaping is getting added, and there will be that additional landscaping too. So that's where I would look to our legal department just to clarify. But if possible, I need to try to make some of that money come out, or we're going to be having another discussion every year about maintaining the assets that we are building.
Okay. Did you want to add anything to that, Glenn? All right, Commissioner Fender.
So my understanding is that we came up with this number based on the project budget for South Sewell's Point Road, and that project budget includes maintenance. So I assume that number we came up with is a debt servicing number that includes all parts of this project too. And by the way, I think it also includes maintenance. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm not concerned about that. I believe that either we're going to get more grants or we're going to find a way to make this project whole, and we're just using that debt servicing number that is the millage rate increase to help us through the rough patches of that, and maybe less, which makes me believe that we'll be able to do some other projects as well, but that's okay. I'm fine containing it any way you want because I'm for keeping a cap on it. Which leads me to my last point, which is we haven't talked about, and this goes back to the 2.87 and your comment about what it takes to keep the lights on. What our residents need to hear is that, and in fact, Mr. Weber approached me about it as well after the first meeting, is that what are we doing on a line item basis to make sure that we are not tightening our belts and that there is not actually waste that we can be putting towards other parts of the organization or to additional capital projects. So, I don't know when we've gone through and done a line item inventory on, why it costs so much to do X, Y, Z. I trust the town manager and her staff that they do that on a daily basis. I don't know if the town residents actually trust that from just a concern basis, but I think part of this 2.87 and keeping the lights on has to include us putting our Republican hats on and being pretty conservative about how funds are being used. And I know you'll say in response, we trim everywhere we can. I expect that, and that's fine, and I think you do. But we should always be vigilant and be keeping an eye on the efficiency of our operations. To at the same time warrant, carving out a millage for capital projects.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's item 12, is we can look at it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's the proposed budget, not as in-depth as was mentioned before, but,
I won't slow you down any farther. then.
so I think what I'm hearing, and please correct me, is if we did a specific resolution, we did the budget as usual, which comes with the resolution, and then a specific resolution, at this point in time, no ordinance, specifying only for, Commissioner Tompak, how would you like to word it? To be specific to saying just,
Yeah, I think, the way Glenn had mentioned there, the .39 you said it was? That 0.39 increase in millage is, strictly reserved for the South Sewell's Point Road project.
okay, okay, I think that's
So 2 resolutions,
the one that,
budget and then 1 long-term.
yes,
Gotcha.
I think that would be appropriate. Okay, so can I get a motion to, we don't have to worry about the budget one yet, correct? Because that's a separate item?
Correct, just a motion to direct staff.
Yeah, motion to direct staff to pursue the resolution and table the ordinance for the moment.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, can you call the vote, please, Town Clerk?
Vice Mayor Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Tompak,
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes,
Commissioner Kurzman.
Yes.
Okay. All right, 9 o'clock. Moving along, we are on to ordinance number 438, designation of town logos. And this is the first reading of it. Town Attorney, would you please read the title?
8.
Yes, ordinance number 438 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewell's Point, Florida, adopting Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1, and General, Section 2-4, Town Logos Uses, to provide for the designation of the town's logos, to establish their authorized uses, and to provide for their protection and provide for severability, the repeal of laws in conflict, codification, and an effective date.
All right, as I said, you're very quick. Open it to public hearing. I do not see any comments. I'm going to close public hearing. Is there any discussion amongst the commission?
I'll make a motion to move it.
I'll second.
Seeing no discussion, Town Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Oh, wait, stop.
Oh.
I have discussion.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is
Back
438.
to discussion, yes.
Can you clarify for me item 2, where it says that the commission will delegate the authority of this to the town manager? I mean, is this something we want to do on a case-by-case basis, or just full-on give the town manager the authority for this?
What section is that?
Item 2, page 2, section 2.-4. Town commission may delegate its authority to approve uses of the logos to the town. It says may, I guess. That's a good thing. I read it while I was driving. But that implies that it's not a shall, it's a may. We may. So in all cases, things could come before the commission, and we can override if necessary, is really my concern.
Yeah, I don't.
Number 2, over on,
If it chooses to do so. Okay, I back off.
All right, the Town Attorney wants to chime in here.
You're correct, it is may, so that you're not delegating it now. You'd have to take separate action to delegate that.
Okay, understood.
If there's no other discussion, can I please get the vote, please, Town Clerk, for ordinance number 438?
Commissioner Tompak,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo,
Aye.
Mayor Mayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes,
Commissioner Kurzman.
yes.
All right, and now we are moving on to resolutions. Item 9, it is now item 9A because we moved the pace one up. It is resolution number 919, adopting the town logo. Town Clerk, would you please read the title?
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewell's Point, Florida, adopting the logo currently registered as a service mark and adopting 3 additional Town of Sewell's Point logos, authorizing the mayor or town manager to execute the applications to register the logos as service marks and for other purposes, and providing for severability, conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst the commission? I know that they were correcting something that was wrong on the other resolution that we had passed regarding this. So if I don't see any questions or discussion, can I please get a motion to approve resolution number 919?
so move.
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompeck.
Yes.
All right, item 10, old business. Appoint full board member to the Code Enforcement Board. Town clerk, do you want to explain the item?
Yes, we have an opening for a full board member, and we have an alternate that's interested in moving up to the full board member. So we would request a motion to approve Kathy Muscovsky as a full board member.
I would be honored to support Kathy Muscovsky as my primary designee. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Appointee?
Appointee, thank you.
All right. And I think I had spoken to the town clerk today. We adjusted because I looked at the code and it says that the people's terms should match the commissioner's terms. So now they all match the terms of the commissioner. So now that, so now Commissioner Kurzman and Commissioner Tompeck, I think you guys just need alternates? Is that correct? I think that's where you guys are. Not as urgent because you have your full members, but, Commissioner.
I'm glad it's not as urgent because I still, I've got a name. I just need to make sure he's okay with the.
Okay, that sounds good. Commissioner Kurzman, you're working on it too?
I got to
Well, it's
clarify.
kind of new.
I-
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I thought Kathy was actually my appointee, but I guess she's moved up
She
to
is.
full-time,
gotta
so
be
she's
fast,
falls under
Dave.
you
You
now.
gotta be
Yeah,
fast.
she was your alternate,
Okay.
so.
I got her.
Yep, all right, so I'll have somebody, the next meeting, I guess.
All right, thank you. And did you say what you had your button pressed?
That was it.
Okay,
That
okay.
was why.
Vice Mayor?
So you made a motion then? I mean,
Made a motion.
is that how we're going to do this?
Yeah, I was just
Yes, I
making it-
did make that motion,
And you got a
absolutely.
second? Did you get a second?
I don't, did you make the motion?
There is no motion or
Yeah, there-
second.
I
I
think
made
you
a
just said-
motion to
Appoint?
thank you,
Promote.
appoint Kathy Muscovsky as my primary entry onto the Code Enforcement Board.
Okay, so I'll second that, and then I've got a question of discussion, okay?
Okay.
Since the boards have been in flux, and we've been using the grand magistrate instead, maybe the town manager can tell us what your thought is moving forward on reincorporating the code enforcement board members and kind of dovetailing into what the magistrate was doing, and what your thoughts are as far as when you use one versus the other.
Sure, did you already do the motion and
Yeah,
second?
let's get that done. You want
Okay.
the motion? So can you please call the vote, Town Clerk?
Sure. Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompeck,
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo.
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Vice Mayor, the group has come together and they're starting to work together very well. And so we had the first meeting, they had an opportunity to be trained on sunshine law and what their role is, incorporates as a code enforcement board member. And the second meeting was a little bit more of the same, and then just some guidance around how they would be working through cases, since they've been coming in and monitoring the special magistrate as a learning process. And I asked them in this last meeting, when we were up here, if they were ready. I said, because we are ready to start to utilize the Code Enforcement Board if you're ready. And the first response was, they thought they needed a couple more months of watching the special magistrate, because it's pretty complicated, that is what their concerns are. And our special magistrate attorney, that is their attorney for the board, recommended to them that the best way for them to learn is to start doing. And so we came to a medium agreement where we said, let's start you as the Code Enforcement Board with a couple of cases, because we know it's going to take them a little bit of time to get in the groove and into the process. Of course, we have 10 cases, I think, potentially. 9 potential cases, unless they get satisfied before September 8th. And so at this time, our plan is to take some baby steps. They will be coming together as the Code Enforcement Board with their attorney, and we'll probably give them 2 to 3 cases. They're also then discussing in an advisory capacity some thoughts on the trash containers in commercial areas. And then we probably will close that meeting somewhat early. We think that with the new board, if we give them 2 to 3, we're probably looking at about an hour to an hour and a half meeting. and then we will finalize the rest of that day with the special magistrate. We do invite them to stay, and they really have been staying with special magistrate and learning and taking notes. So we feel it's progressing along nicely, and I actually asked them for their feedback before we make the plans.
All right, does that sound good, Mike?
Because the special magistrate is that board's attorney.
Correct, when he's in that role.
So when they are running their own meetings, that attorney, Tyson, will be there with them.
Correct.
Moving forward, right, okay.
Correct, yes. So he will give them guidance. They will bring their culture of being the resident and their heart to the decision-making process. And he will help them, but they make the decision when they are the code enforcement board.
Okay, excellent. I think that sounds exciting. All right, moving on to new business. Item 11A, American Rescue Plan. Town manager. Can you talk about
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, in front of you is the memo from myself, as well as the contract that has been sent to us regarding the American Rescue Plan Act. The contract is in front of you to accept as written, and there was a little surprise on here, and the agreement came in at a little bit more than we had initially heard, $1,114,900. This is $179,485 more than the original calculation that was released earlier in the year. We're asking for you to accept the contract so we can move forward in as quick a speed as possible. And we're, information's coming in daily. So just before this meeting started, there was a request for each city and each non-entity to double check to make sure that these numbers match that to the 75% cap of the budget. And so I sent it to Glenn, and we will be doing that as a final step.
Okay.
And it is before you.
All right, thank you. Any discussion amongst the commission? If none, I would look for a motion to approve the contract.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, town clerk, call the vote,
Could I
please.
just have one comment? I assume at some point in the future, we're going to have a lengthy discussion about how to spend that money, right?
Yes, sir. As soon as,
I thought we just.
as soon as we accept I felt, we wanted to vet it with the attorney, make sure all of those steps are handled, and then we're going to put the rules out with you to help you with that conversation.
Build me a friggin' dock, man.
All right, I think, call the vote, please, town clerk.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Peck?
Yes.
Mayor Mayfield?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campo? Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
All right, well, that's good news. That's fun stuff. All right. Discussion. It's now the only item on there, so we'll make it A, fiscal year 2022 budget compensation plan presentation. And we're, a little disappointed Cheryl's not here, but
She is disappointed as well, Madam Mayor, Commissioner, and we're just going to move through this PowerPoint together. And again, as a reminder, we're doing it the same way we did last year, where we are bringing pieces at a time, doable chunks, instead of it all at one time during the public hearing portion. Tonight, I'm giving you the information. Please consider it a draft. If there's something you want more of, something different, then today is the day for that feedback, so I could make the adjustments before the final presentation, okay? So this is the compensation plan presentation and draft overview budget for fiscal year 2021 through 2022.
no, it's in our packet.
It's in your packet, but yes, in the red folder, you have what I'm going to show you here, which has some corrections that we made this afternoon. The Town of Sewell's Point Town Commission, you are at the top of that organizational chart, and this is the organizational structure, that organizational chart and the flow. Our administrative side is on the left, our police is on the right. And we'll go right to this slide because I know this is where everybody wants to be. This is the draft budget, and to speak to our conversation earlier, this draft budget is presented in this format simply because it's the format that the town has received over the last, what I can see, 5 to 6 years. If you'd like it to have a different view, we can absolutely change that. The forecast for the ad valorem revenue collection offers an additional $329,060 at that millage rate of 3.2688. And as long as that millage rate holds tight, then you will see over here to the right where the yellow arrow is. I'll circle that for anybody watching on
Capital projects.
TV.
With an S.
Yes, we have it all in one line item,
Typo.
reserved for capital projects, or $330,000. The yellow indicates where all of the said funds are reserved for capital projects as determined by the commission. And as a reminder, your staff cannot take that money and use it for anything unless the commission has given direction on it. Salaries and wages include an open additional police officer role that is funded and expected to be filled this year. That's different than last year. We did not fill it last year. We are looking to fill it this year. The town's insurance agent has gave us a great message, which is we anticipate a 5% reduction from last year's costs. The budget here reflects the expectation of the additional officer, so we've given it's a flat year-over-year estimate based on us not knowing who that next officer is going to be. And the balance of the budget line items were determined based on the trends of actual revenues and expenditures. So not just that first draft that you saw last year in 2020. Staff budget annual compensation plan for 2021. So we wanted to show you a couple things here. So these are the numbers that you're used to seeing. This is for the fiscal year that we're currently in, and we've divided our organization into 3 components. The support staff, which is typically all administrative, and that includes your town manager. PD command, which is and remains and has been for years the chief of police, the lieutenant, and the sergeant. And the PD patrol, which is every other officer. The 2021 annual is expected to be at $1,097,397. That's actual. The reason that's actual is because this is with the number of employees we currently have in place. Recognizing that we have an open role as that police officer comes in, what we pay that police officer will depend on their background, their education level, and where they fall in the step plan. And these are the employees that are currently here. Well, this is a total compensation, and so we're letting you know that this is the employees that currently work here.
So the main heading says staff budget, annual compensation. The next column says current health insurance enrollment. What does that mean?
That means we're not anticipating what the insurance would be for an added officer. These are the current employees. Okay? Here's your retirement, your insurance, because all of this goes into total compensation, your FICA, and your totals are over here to the right. Now, when you look at this number here on your actual 1.097397, I will call out that on your budget itself, which is here, this number, it doesn't match that number, salaries and wages. And the reason for that is because this is the actual of who's working here, and, excuse me, this is anticipating another officer. So that's why that's higher.
Can I ask a question as you go along, or would you like to wait for the end?
Up to the mayor.
You can ask as you go along, that way it's relevant to what's happening.
So can you go back to that one slide with the 1150? So the difference between the 1082,197 and the 1150 is 67,803. What makes up that 67,803? Is that solely the one police officer?
It's going to be one police officer, it's going to be salary and wages with increases as well.
For everyone else?
Correct. But the rest of it carries down here for the total compensation package.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, so something this is not news to you. Our typical budget maintains an approximate 60-40 balance with 60% of payroll allocated to the police department. This next fiscal year anticipates 62% of the total compensation dedicated to law enforcement. This is due to a combination of reduced support staff and the addition of a police officer. So I wanted to show you this staff annual budget. So this looks like the same slide as the others with this very similar information, except under insurance. This slide is important because in the future, you may not have what you currently have today. So currently, the town has 2 full-time support staff that choose not to accept medical benefits. That's myself and the building official. The value of those 2 roles with the applicable health and medical insurance is captured on this graph, and at this time, the savings to the town for the 2 roles is $47,310. That's important because in the past, you have had these 2 roles that did have a full compensation package, and so in the future, if you have different individuals that want insurance, that will have to be budgeted. In your folder, I also gave you information that came from our broker, and this is just for your reading pleasure later, that shows all of your administrative staff that do not accept medical benefits and what it would be should they choose to accept them. This is a graph you're used to seeing, the town hall positions, classifications, and salary ranges. This is just the classification piece with the compensation ranges. Typically, your roles fall right into the mid-range. And this is your sworn officer step plan that you're used to seeing. This has not changed since 2019. This is the information on the step plan that you're used to seeing. The definition, I included it for the public, although I know you've each seen this over and over again, so that when they look at the step plan, they understand it. Deferred comp and 457 plans for retirement. We are not under the Florida retirement system. We have a deferred comp and 457 plans. As you can see, the town pays 15% of the base pay for individuals for that 401 deferred compensation plan. Vesting schedule is 20% per year, and you have to be here 5 years to get the full vesting. The health insurance has changed since last year. We offer the good, better, best options, so 3 different options in an effort to reduce the premiums. The town pays 85% of that total cost, and we've put a cap on the maximum benefit of $2,500 monthly per employee. That remains in effect. This is a glance of the good, better, best system. These are value-based health insurance options, which offer quality care and a choice of premium copays. So your employees, your team, can have a chance to choose the best product, or if their budget calls for it, they can go down to the good product rather than the best and better. And that's it so far. What questions would you like to have, or differences you'd like to see for final?
Thank you, Town Manager. Oh, would you briefly address the other, if this is part of the compensation, the other thing that was? I guess that's not, is that part of it? It was in the red folder about our attorney.
That's, yeah,
Okay.
that's under staff comments later.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, we'll save that one for later. Commissioner Bender.
The one that I had in here for additional, just viewing, is the extended information provided by the health insurance broker. It offers a view of potential impact if all the administrative employees who currently do not accept health benefits were accepting health benefits. And when you turn the pages, you can see the savings that occurs.
So you said before that you and Jack weren't taking insurance, but neither are Cheryl and April, but they're hourly. Is that the difference? They're not the full-time employees?
Correct. So April is under 30 hours. We usually keep her at 26 hours or less so that she doesn't have to move into that role.
Okay.
And in this last year, Cheryl has moved into the 26 and over role.
Okay.
But she chooses not to take the benefit package.
Okay.
Your previous clerk was full-time, did accept that benefit package.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Fender.
Just trying to get you to re-articulate or tell me in a nutshell the delta between the previous fiscal year and the proposed fiscal year, amount increase, percent increase, dollar-wise and percentage? Is that on here and I'm just not seeing it? By the way, I think it includes also the additional police officer?
No, we did not spell out your percentages on this one. This is typically the compensation presentation.
Okay, I'm just interested in how much the compensation is going up or down. I mean, and if we don't know it, that's fine, if it's coming
I
down
mean,
later.
no, I can do the math here, but rather than
Are
sit
you-
here and
what-
do the math with you, what I'll do is get that information to you and
Yeah.
create a memo,
Okay,
and then that way it's to you before the end of the week. How's that?
sure.
Vice Mayor?
Ready for questions?
Yeah.
Are you ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay. I made notes on the original, and I'm looking at the, so can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
No, yeah. What's the difference between this slide and the next slide?
This slide is the actual payments that will occur with the actual people that work for you in the town of Sewell's Point. This slide, same information, except I wanted to give you a glimpse of what that would have looked like if the two full-time people, that being your town manager and your building official, accepted medical benefits. It would have been a $47,000, $310 increase. That's part of the compensation package that was offered by the town and approved in previous commissions and budget meetings. And so at this time, without those insurance policies, that's what you're saving.
So the statement you just made is that that was the amount that was offered to previous staff members?
No, the statement I'm making is that the roles that you had in the past, you had building officials that were full-time and had benefits. You had town managers in the past that were full-time and had benefits. And so in the future, I don't want anybody to be blindsided. If there are different people that go into these roles, they will probably want to have benefit package, and you will need to adjust the compensation accordingly.
So I'll just ask, you know how bashful I am, what salary are you calculating and including for yourself in this coming year?
That is to be determined, but the overall salary for the total compensation, $150,000.
Okay, so when you look at support departments, 2021 annual, 21-22, there's about a 40-ish, oh, nope, okay. We could do that too.
The same information.
The 39,578 is you, Lori, and, tell me, please.
As the slide says, support for this financial summary that you have, this graphic, includes the combined roles of town manager, building department, public works, code enforcement,
Okay.
finance, clerk, and administration. And that includes the administration on the police side.
Okay, so in general, the PD command is going up by cost of living, the schedule that we have in the packet, the salary scale.
Correct. The police department, outside of the chief, received their increases based on their step.
Okay.
And if there's some other merit, but I don't believe there's any additional merit, yes, and the chief is confirming that. So it's simply based on their step. And the chief, at this point in time, I have worked in a 5% increase for the chief.
Okay,
And the reason I worked in the 5% increase is because it's been a COVID year, and where a typical increase is around 3%, I would say to you, it's been like a hurricane season all year long, and I appreciate the service that came from our team.
Okay, so the support line from 399 to 578 is going to go to 438, and that includes your raise from 110 to 150.
No, sir. My 150 will be a total compensation.
So that includes what?
I believe it's including a 140 mark,
Okay.
which is going to be, well, I'm going to let you all decide that, but
No,
that's
well, I
not
mean-
what it's not what I'm presenting. We just round it up.
Okay, so it's based upon assumptions, and that's the number that you have for yourself, 140. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, and you can ask Cheryl this, the salaries are going up by 6.2%, but the workers' comp is going up by 50%. The FICA is going up by 21.2%. And normally, salary is, and the mayor can confirm, between being married to an insurance agent and being in taxes, why would the salary go up by 6%, but FICA is going up by 21.2%, and workers' comp is going up by 50%? You want to maybe check back with me? I just read my package today. I could have called you about it, but.
Is that workers' comp?
Yeah, workers' comp, I don't know about workers' comp.
There's not a workers' comp on this.
Okay, can you go to the first page?
Compensation.
Go to the budget,
The first page?
yeah.
Expenses, the second to last one, workers' comp, 10,000. Second to last one, 10,000, goes up to 15,000.
You know what, she said sometimes these are based on, well, that wouldn't be, but I wanted to emphasize when I talked to Cheryl about this, that, because I had questions about increases from this is budget to budget, and she based the current budget on actuals. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, normally when I look at a budget, you're going to look at what was approved last year, the actual, and the recommended. I won't make a big deal out of it, but this is very abbreviated, and again, you're just asking for all this glut of information to come in when passions are going crazy, and that puts us in a difficult position, but you know, it is what it is. The other insurance was 0, goes to 5,000. I don't know what that is. When you go up the column to FICA, it goes from 82,000 to 100,000. That's a 21.2% increase. Could that be because, are we changing someone from an independent contractor where they were paying their own FICA? Is that possible?
I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Are we changing anyone's status from an independent contractor to an employee?
Not in this current year
Okay.
coming up, no.
And then professional services, its total operating expenses, one other, there was another one. Okay, yeah. So professional services, which is in the right column under operating expenses. Excuse me. It goes from 5,000 to 16,000. I wonder if you know what that's about. No?
Again, when I asked, it was sometimes the actuals, to your point about having to see the actuals, because I had asked about a few. I just don't remember specifically which ones they were, but she had said it's because the actual ended up being blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that's the case, but the
That's
actual
going
would
to
be
be the case
helpful.
on everything, and professional services is going to be more than just one item.
Okay, well,
So we can
just
expand.
make a note and
Sure.
send me an email or send us an email so that we're better prepared. And then comprehensive planning services, my favorite category, is planned for 80,000, but then that's going to be another 80,000. Is that correct for this coming year?
Is that under professional services? I'm trying to find the second
Yeah,
one
that one,
down,
yes.
comprehensive planning services, 80 and 80?
Yes.
Correct,
So cumulative would be 160.
correct.
And do you anticipate the comprehensive plan being complete for those two charges?
We actually anticipate getting grants in as well, which won't be a part of that line item. That would be a part of a revenue line item.
Okay, but do you anticipate the expense being complete with those two $80,000 charges.
That is what we've been told, yes.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
And again, on the 2021 final budget and then moving into the 2020, 21, 22, it's based on actuals, so things that have changed. On the workman's comp piece, some of that also incorporates people that were out for COVID.
Right.
And so we are also trying to anticipate that people might be out for similar reasons in the year. That could be one of them, but we can get you a breakdown further.
Okay, so can I just finish with one thing, Ms. Mayor? Madam Mayor? What I would like to see before the budget meeting is 2021 final budget, 2021 actual, and then 21, 22 recommended. In
Tell me that again, 2021 final?
2021 final,
Mhm.
2021 actual,
Which should be the final, right?
Well, no, the final budget, the actual,
That's-
what occurred, and then the budget for this year, those three things.
so 2021 final is what you had budgeted, but 2021 actual is what did it end up being?
Correct, and that won't be ready until the end of October typically.
You could do as of, you know.
Yeah, you're going to have to do, kind of promulgate something, 9/12 or 10/12 or,
We could do a year-to-date, you can have the information.
right. And then if I could have it in as much detail as is our monthly financials, then I'm prepared when the next meetings come around. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask one more question. We are going to meet the second Tuesday and the second Thursday, plus the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday?
I think it's like a meeting a week.
Yeah, I would refer to April to read back our schedule for the month of September.
Okay.
But yes, at this point in time, unless the commission wants to do something differently,
I'm just
which
asking.
we're fine, we can do that.
Okay.
We have scheduled a regular workshop at the regular workshop time, which is that second Tuesday. And we have a regular meeting scheduled for that normal time on the Tuesday, on the fourth Tuesday. And then we have the public hearing scheduled for April.
The 8th, September 8th at 5:05. And then right after that, you have attorney-client session with Glenn. And then the next budget meeting will be on the 22nd at 5:05.
I've got a budget-oriented question to say under commissioner comments, but thank you very much for helping me with those. And if you could follow up with that when you and Cheryl can work it out, I would appreciate it.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Would the rest of the commission want that detail, or should we just provide it via memo to Vice Mayor Campo?
I'd like that additional
Okay.
detail, thank you.
So we can create that as part of the final package, and we'll bring that to you if it's okay with you to add one more item to your September workshop. I'll bring it to the workshop so that you have it before your public hearing.
The second public hearing.
No, I'm going to bring it to your workshop.
Oh, yeah, the first public hearings, I thought that was on the 8th.
So perfect. Oh, yes. No, you're right. It's on the 8th.
Okay, so it would,
So we'll
can
be
you just
detailed.
email it to us all? And then
Yeah, we'll
and
just
then
send it
okay.
to you ahead of time.
Okay.
It's just, what you're asking for is, it's not the condensed version that you usually approve. This is different than you have ever approved before. So we will give it to you.
That's not my recollection, but I appreciate the extra effort putting it together.
Okay. I could be wrong. I just take a look at the last couple of years, and we just finalized everything last year the same way, and the year before that, it seemed like it was the same way. We're happy to do it again differently.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I remember it looking like this last year, but I don't mind the more information. I like looking at financial stuff, so.
And actually, I thought we broke out a lot more information this year than we had in previous years. And if you go to, let me just make sure everybody knows where to go. So if you're in the public and you want to see what that looks like, you go to our website under government, like this, where this highlight is. You go under approved budget, and you can see all the years previous approved budgets look like this.
Yeah, that's what we approved.
And I thought we gave you a little extra information on ours, but we'll go ahead and change it and give you details and not collapsed.
Okay, town manager, so I get it all straight in my head. On that first Wednesday, we have a meeting, the 5th, where we approve the preliminary, it's the first approval of the rate and the budget, is that correct?
The 8th.
On the 8th, and then we have a workshop the next week. And then the week after that is the second approval of the budget and the rate. And then we have a regular meeting the week after that, that's correct, right?
Correct.
So it's like Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Okay,
The 8th, the 14th, the 22nd, and the 28th.
okay. Yeah. 8th, the 14th, yeah. I think it's the Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Okay.
And just remember the, that's fine. And the public hearings start at 5:05.
5:05,
Yes.
okay. Okay,
All right, we'll make those changes and get them out as soon as possible.
all right.
Very good feedback, thank you.
We are moving on to closing comments. I think we lost the commissioner, but I imagine he'll be back soon. Staff comments.
I will start and then move it over to my staff. I think they're good out there. It'll just be Glenn. All right, so I have in your packet for you to review the contract. It's time for the annual renewal for Glenn Torsivia's contract. In April's, we give thumbs up on his performance, and so this is a formality if for renewal. I wanted to give you the information before it's on the next meeting, which would be in September.
Okay.
This will be on the meeting. You'll have all the same information, but I thought I'd give it to you beforehand.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff comments?
No, ma'am. Oh, I believe Glenn might have a comment.
Are you gonna?
If I do, I don't recall what it was.
You don't recall what it was?
Were we gonna talk about the town manager contracts that are coming up, or is
Oh,
it?
thank you.
Yeah.
So as you're aware, Michelle's agreement is coming up. Just looking at the folder. Michelle's agreement's coming up at the end of October, and so spoke with the mayor a day or two ago, spoke with Michelle. I'm planning on drafting up a red line version compared to what she currently has. Share it with the both of them first. When we get to a consensus, then put it on the agenda.
All right, thank you, so it's in the works. All right, moving on to commissioner comments.
I just want to,
I'm sorry.
it'll be important to review it in between meetings because the only time that you'll be able to vote on that will be during your last September meeting, September 24th. After that, my contract expires.
Yes, so everybody do their homework. All right, commissioner comments. I feel like people are getting ready, but maybe not. Vice Mayor? Or you're just, okay, it was just the microphone. All right. Did you have one? Oh, yeah, you had a question.
Yeah, a county commissioner friend of mine said that if we approach the county and ask them to negotiate a fire contract, that might be of interest to us. And with the upcoming jump that we've got with the city of Stewart, I know it would not be an easy task, but it's something that we are doing all sorts of planning and machinations in order to kind of work through. We're about set to go in a year or two from, mid-fives to over 700,000. They're building a new station very close to us. I think it would provide a higher level of service. I'm sure it would not be an easy task, but based upon what's going on in Indiantown and some of the possible negotiations, it might be worth a phone call. So,
Okay. Excellent.
would you be willing to make that call, or?
I will only make that call if I get a direction from this commission because we have a contract in place and I can't negotiate without the commission giving me that authority.
I mean, I don't feel like I have the,
Is there a termination clause in the contract? Or an out clause, how do you get out of that contract?
yeah, I mean, is it something to discuss?
We'd have to
and then-
review.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
It was a 10-year contract when it was signed, and I asked the same question, and I got a copy of it. I don't know how we'll get out of it. You can take a look at it. It's not anything that's going to be easy to get out of at any time. You probably have to go through the full 10 years. Because it does go up to like I think it's 900 some odd thousand.
The Indian Town, to your point, sir, was able to negotiate, but they didn't have an existing contract with another city, but they were able to negotiate, I believe, a $300,000 incentive for the first certain amount of time. But the millage rate that is established for the Martin County Fire District is higher than our current 2.87.
I come across folks that I've been, have relationships with and think that those might be helpful to the town of Sewell's Point and our residents. And as we go through difficulties with digesting what's about to come up, I want to make sure that we've got all avenues to explore. And I just throw that out as something that I think is worth pursuing. But if you don't want to or can't, I mean, I think it all starts with a phone call, but that's all.
Maybe the town attorney could look at the contract, see how I mean, don't spend a lot of time on, I don't want to spend money, but.
I can look at that contract quickly enough, I just didn't bring it with me tonight.
Have it memorized?
I don't have it memorized. I have the same memory as Commissioner Kurzman, that it's about 10 years, and I think we're only 2 or 3 years into it.
I have no problem doing that, sir. Ma'am, it's a fine fire department, so there's absolutely no issues there. The ISO rating is different. It's a 3 versus Stewart's 1, so that might change some insurance rates within the state, within our residents here for their homes. But the fire departments themselves are both very good.
Okay, well, maybe he could just let us know how ironclad it seems, or. All right, any other commissioner comments? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.